The world is not gentle. It does not slow down for your uncertainty, and it does not reward hesitation. It tests you constantly through competition, betrayal, rejection, failure, and pressure. Some people respond by shrinking, becoming agreeable, soft, invisible. Others overcorrect, becoming reactive, defensive, and chaotic. Very few learn the deeper art, how to become unshakable. To become unshakable is not to become emotionless. It is not about pretending nothing affects you. It is about building such clarity, such internal strength, that external forces lose their power over you. And that kind of strength is not built through comfort. It is built through philosophy, through confronting uncomfortable truths about power, identity, and human nature. From Machiavelli, we learn to see the world as it actually is, not as we wish it to be. He teaches us that power is real, perception matters, and naivete is dangerous. Becoming unshakable requires strategic awareness, understanding motives, reading people accurately, and refusing to be manipulated by illusions of fairness. Machiavelli forces you to drop innocence and replace it with intelligence. In a ruthless world, awareness is armor. From Nietzsche, we learn the necessity of strength. Not borrowed strength, not moral posturing, but inner force. Nietzsche challenges you to go beyond shame, beyond herd mentality, beyond the need for approval. He teaches that greatness requires the courage to stand alone and the willingness to create your own values. To become unshakable, you must stop asking for permission to be powerful. You must stop apologizing for ambition. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. From Carl Jung, we learn that true control begins within. You cannot dominate your environment if you are ruled by your unconscious fears. Jung teaches shadow integration, the process of confronting the darker aspects of your personality instead of repressing them. The parts of you that crave power, attention, control, when ignored, they sabotage you. When understood, they strengthen you. Owning yourself means knowing your weaknesses so well that they cannot secretly direct your life. Together, these thinkers reveal a deeper truth. If you do not master yourself, the world will master you. If you do not understand power, you will be controlled by it. If you do not confront your shadow, it will control you from beneath the surface. Becoming unshakable in a ruthless world is not about dominating others. It is about refusing to be ruled by fear, by public opinion, by insecurity, or by your own unconscious patterns. It requires awareness, strength, and radical self-honesty. The world may not change. It may remain competitive, unpredictable, and indifferent. But you can change. You can sharpen your mind, fortify your character, and stand in your own authority. The question is simple. Will you remain fragile in a ruthless world, or will you become the kind of person who cannot be shaken? Machiavelli begins from a place most philosophies avoid because it is uncomfortable and destabilizing. He does not start with ideals, with visions of how humans ought to behave, or with comforting assumptions about goodness naturally prevailing. He starts with fear, with instability, with the simple observation that human beings behave very differently when their security, status, or survival is threatened. In moments of calm, people speak the language of values. In moments of pressure, they speak the language of interest. This is not a condemnation, it is a diagnosis. And Machiavelli insists that any philosophy that ignores this fact is not just incomplete, but dangerous. To understand his position, you have to imagine the world he lived in. Italy was not a unified nation. It was a battlefield of city-states, alliances, betrayals, invasions, and sudden reversals of fortune. Governments rose and collapsed overnight. Loyal servants were praised one day and exiled the next. Power was not abstract. It was visible in soldiers on the streets, in public executions, in families wiped out because they chose the wrong side at the wrong moment. In such a world, moral purity was not a shield. Good intentions did not stop armies. Idealistic rulers were replaced quickly, often violently. Machiavelli did not reject morality because he was cynical. He rejected moral idealism because he watched it fail again and again in the real world. What he observed was simple but unsettling. Most people are guided not by virtue, but by interest, fear, and advantage. This does not mean people are always selfish or cruel. It means their behavior shifts depending on circumstances. When things are stable, cooperation feels natural. When resources are scarce or danger appears, self-preservation takes over. Promises weaken, gratitude fades, loyalty becomes conditional. Machiavelli noticed that leaders who assumed people would remain virtuous under pressure were consistently betrayed, undermined, or destroyed. Meanwhile, leaders who understood fear, incentives, and power survived longer, even if they were personally disliked. This is where many people misunderstand him. They hear this analysis and assume he is encouraging manipulation or cruelty. He is not. He is describing reality. Understanding gravity does not mean you want people to fall. It means you stop building houses on cliffs without foundations. Machiavelli saw that political and social systems built on unrealistic assumptions about human nature inevitably collapsed. They collapsed not because people were evil, but because systems ignored how people actually behave when stakes are high. Moral ideals, in Machiavelli's view, are fragile under pressure. They work best in environments of safety and abundance. When those conditions disappear, ideals are often the first thing sacrificed. People who preach fairness may abandon it when their position is threatened. Those who speak of loyalty may defect when incentives change. Even deeply held values can bend when fear enters the picture. Machiavelli does not celebrate this. He treats it as a fact that must be accounted for. A ruler, a leader, or even an individual who refuses to acknowledge this reality is not noble. They are exposed. Power structures, according to Machiavelli, shape behavior more than personal values ever could. People adapt to incentives, they respond to consequences, they follow systems, not speeches. This is why laws, institutions, and authority matter more than declarations of virtue. A system that rewards honesty will produce more honest behavior than 1,000 sermons. A system that punishes weakness will encourage people to hide vulnerability, regardless of their moral beliefs. Machiavelli understood that human behavior is plastic. It bends around power. Ignore that, and you mistake words for reality. This leads to one of his most uncomfortable conclusions. Naivety is punished faster than cruelty. This does not mean cruelty is good. It means weakness disguised as goodness is especially vulnerable. A leader who assumes others will act fairly simply because fairness is right invites exploitation. A ruler who refuses to prepare for betrayal because betrayal is immoral leaves the door open to those who do not share that restraint. In Machiavelli's world, and often in ours, the naive do not suffer because they are kind. They suffer because they confuse kindness with safety. Machiavelli rejected idealism because he saw the cost of it. Idealistic leaders often believed that being morally good would protect them from harm. They thought justice alone would secure loyalty. They trusted that promises would be honored because they were made sincerely. When these beliefs collided with reality, the consequences were brutal. Their people suffered, their states collapsed, their moral purity did not survive the aftermath. Machiavelli concluded that intentions, no matter how noble, do not shield you from the mechanics of power. This is why good intentions so often lead to bad outcomes, not because goodness is harmful, but because it is insufficient on its own. When leaders act without understanding incentives, power dynamics, and human fear, their actions can create chaos, even if their motives are pure. A ruler who refuses to enforce order because punishment feels wrong may allow disorder to spread, harming everyone. A leader who avoids decisive action to preserve moral cleanliness may prolong suffering instead of preventing it. Machiavelli observed that outcomes matter more than intentions, not in a moral sense, but in a practical one. History does not record what you meant to do, it records what happened. Understanding power is not the same as abusing it. This distinction is critical. Power exists whether you acknowledge it or not. Influence operates whether you approve of it or not. Fear shapes decisions whether you like it or not. To understand these forces is not to endorse their worst expressions. It is to stop being blind to them. A surgeon studies disease without celebrating illness. A general studies war without loving violence. Machiavelli studies power because ignorance of it leads to greater harm. Fear plays a central role here. Fear is not just terror or panic. It is the awareness of loss of safety, loss of status, loss of control. People act very differently when they feel something important slipping away. Machiavelli recognized that fear is one of the most reliable motivators of behavior because it bypasses ideals and goes straight to survival. Leaders who ignore fear misunderstand the terrain they are operating in. There is a reason Machiavelli's writing produces discomfort even centuries later. He removes the comforting illusion that the world rewards goodness automatically. He shows that reality does not operate like a moral scoreboard. Power flows through structure, perception, and consequence. Those who refuse to see this often become victims of those who do. Many philosophies promise peace through virtue alone. Machiavelli offers no such comfort. He offers clarity. He insists that if you want to act ethically in the real world, you must first understand how the world actually functions. Otherwise, your ethics will be decorative, not effective. They will collapse the moment pressure appears. When he writes about power, he is not glorifying domination. He is explaining influence. Power determines who sets the rules, who enforces them, and who benefits from them. To pretend you are above power is to allow others to wield it over you without resistance. Machiavelli saw this repeatedly in Florence, where leaders who refused to engage with power politics were quickly removed by those who had no such reservations. His realism forces a difficult question. Do you want to live inside comforting illusions, or do you want to understand the forces shaping your life? He knows that clarity is often mistaken for coldness and realism for immorality, but he also knows that refusing to see reality does not make it kinder. If you don't understand power, you don't escape it, you submit to it. Submission does not always look like chains or commands. It often looks like confusion, like resentment, like constantly feeling treated unfairly without understanding why, like believing the world is broken when in fact it is operating exactly as it always has. Machiavelli asks you to stop confusing how things ought to be with how they are. Only then can you act responsibly inside reality instead of being crushed by it. Machiavelli's second major contribution is his refusal to believe that life can be mastered through planning alone. He does not deny the value of intelligence, foresight, or strategy, but he insists that no amount of planning can eliminate uncertainty. The world is unstable by nature. Events collide, systems shift, people change loyalties, and outcomes escape prediction. The most dangerous illusion a person can hold is the belief that life rewards patience and good intentions with stability. It does not. Life rewards those who can act while the ground is moving beneath their feet. This is where his famous distinction between virtue and fortuna becomes central. These are not abstract philosophical concepts meant for scholars. They are practical lenses for understanding why some people rise again and again, while others remain stuck waiting for conditions to improve. Machiavelli is not interested in comforting explanations. He is interested in why power accumulates where it does, and why some individuals seem capable of shaping events instead of being crushed by them. Fortuna represents everything outside your control. It is luck, timing, randomness, and chaos. It includes economic collapses that come without warning, social changes that overturn entire systems, betrayals from people you trusted, and moments where opportunity appears or disappears without explanation. It does not care about fairness. It does not reward effort consistently. It strikes unpredictably, sometimes destroying what took years to build in a matter of days. Most people live as if fortune can be negotiated with. They believe that if they are patient enough, careful enough, or morally upright enough, chaos will pass them by. Fortune is indifferent. It does not avoid the cautious. In fact, it often overwhelms them first because they are slow to react. Those who assume stability are the least prepared when instability arrives. Against this force stands virtue. This word is often mistranslated as virtue in the moral sense. Virtue is not goodness, it is strength. It is the ability to impose form on chaos through action. It includes decisiveness, adaptability, courage under uncertainty, and a willingness to act without guarantees. It is not a personality trait you are born with. It is a discipline developed through confrontation with reality. Decisiveness is central to virtue because hesitation is costly in unstable environments. Machiavelli observed that when situations are unclear, most people freeze. They wait for more information, they hope for certainty, they delay responsibility. Meanwhile, events move forward without them. Power flows to those who choose a direction and move, even if that direction is imperfect. This does not mean reckless action. It means understanding that clarity often comes after movement, not before it. Adaptability is another core element. Machiavelli warns repeatedly against rigidity. Systems change, people change. What worked yesterday may fail tomorrow. Leaders and individuals who cling to a single method, identity, or strategy eventually break when circumstances shift. Virtue requires flexibility, not in values, but in approach. It is the capacity to adjust tactics without losing direction. Those who survive chaos are rarely the strongest or the smartest. They are the ones most willing to change. Courage under uncertainty is perhaps the hardest component to cultivate. Acting without guarantees means accepting the possibility of failure, blame, and loss. Most people avoid action not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear consequences. He also understood that avoiding risk does not eliminate danger. It merely transfers control to others. Those who refuse to act become subjects of other people's decisions. A willingness to act without guarantees separates dangerous individuals from passive ones. Dangerous here does not mean violent or destructive. It means capable. It means someone who does not require perfect conditions to move. Machiavelli noticed that history favors those who act while outcomes are uncertain. Waiting for certainty often means arriving too late. By the time conditions are clear, the opportunity has already been claimed by someone else. Fortuna, in contrast, represents everything that disrupts plans. Economic shifts can destroy careers overnight. Entire industries disappear. Social changes redefine what is acceptable, valuable, or powerful. Betrayal emerges not always from enemies, but from allies whose interests change. Timing remains one of the most uncontrollable elements of success. Being right too early can be as damaging as being wrong. Machiavelli does not pretend these forces can be mastered. He insists they must be anticipated. His key insight is brutal in its simplicity. Most people wait for certainty. They wait for permission. They wait for motivation. They wait for the right moment. While they wait, others move. Dangerous people move while others hesitate. This movement does not guarantee success, but it dramatically increases influence. Action shapes circumstances. Inaction allows circumstances to shape you. Control does not come from prediction. The future cannot be reliably predicted. Control comes from preparation. Preparation means building internal strength rather than relying on external stability. It means training yourself to respond rather than react. It means cultivating habits that function even when motivation disappears. The person who prepares does not need perfect timing. They are usable in many conditions. This is why Machiavelli admired figures who could act decisively in moments of disorder, not because they were morally flawless, but because they were effective when effectiveness mattered most. He saw that chaos rewards readiness. Those who prepare for disorder suffer less when it arrives. Those who assume order persists are shocked when it collapses. In modern terms, this philosophy translates cleanly. Discipline matters more than motivation because motivation is unstable. It rises and falls with mood, energy, and external feedback. Discipline remains when conditions worsen. Readiness matters more than optimism because optimism assumes things will work out. Readiness assumes they might not and prepares accordingly. Action matters more than waiting for permission because permission often arrives after opportunity has passed. Many people misunderstand this as harsh or pessimistic. It is neither. It is realistic. Hope without preparation creates fragility. Confidence built on stable conditions collapses when conditions change. Virtue creates internal stability that does not depend on the external world behaving well. One of Machiavelli's most subtle observations is that fortune favors the bold, not because boldness is magically rewarded, but because boldness creates momentum. Movement attracts allies, resources, and opportunities that hesitation repels. Even failure, when combined with visible effort, often produces more options than passive waiting. Those who act become visible. Those who wait remain invisible. There is also a psychological dimension here. Acting under uncertainty builds self-trust. Each decision made without guarantees strengthens your capacity to decide again. Waiting weakens this capacity. Over time, hesitation becomes a habit. So does courage. People are shaped by repeated behavior more than by beliefs. Virtue is trained through exposure to uncertainty, not avoidance of it. This explains why some people seem unshaken during chaos. They are not fearless. They are practiced. They have internalized the idea that instability is normal. When fortune shifts, they do not panic because they never assumed permanence. They built themselves for movement, not comfort. It also explains why stability often produces weakness. Long periods of comfort erode virtue. People grow accustomed to predictability. They mistake routine for security. When disruption arrives, they are psychologically unprepared. Machiavelli observed this pattern repeatedly in states that enjoyed peace for too long. Their leaders grew soft. Their institutions decayed. When crisis arrived, they collapsed quickly. Dangerous people, in Machiavelli's sense, are not reckless gamblers. They are disciplined actors. They accept uncertainty as permanent. They do not demand guarantees from life before engaging with it. They understand that fortune will strike regardless of their readiness, so they choose readiness. It means planning without attachment. It means treating plans as tools, not promises. The dangerous individual prepares multiple paths, knowing some will fail. They do not cling to a single vision so tightly that change feels like betrayal. They adapt without losing direction. His lesson here is deeply uncomfortable because it removes excuses. If success depends on luck alone, failure feels forgivable. If success depends partly on preparation, responsibility increases. Virtue places weight on the individual. It demands effort before certainty. It asks you to move before reassurance arrives. This is why most people resist this philosophy. Waiting feels safer. It preserves self-image. Acting risks exposure. Safety purchased through inaction is temporary. Fortune eventually breaks through. When it does, only those with virtue remain standing. In a chaotic world, strength is not domination, it is responsiveness. It is the capacity to act without freezing. It is the refusal to outsource agency to circumstance. Machiavelli's message here is not aggressive, it is sobering. Chaos is not an exception, it is the environment. Those who accept this early suffer less later. Without virtue, power cannot be maintained. Without an understanding of fortuna, confidence becomes delusion. Machiavelli teaches that life does not wait for you to feel ready. Dangerous people understand this, and they move anyway. Few ideas in political philosophy have been repeated as often and understood as poorly as Machiavelli's discussion of fear and love. Reduced to a slogan, it becomes crude and misleading. Taken seriously, it becomes one of the clearest explanations of authority ever written. Machiavelli was not asking rulers to terrify people. He was asking them to understand what actually holds relationships together when pressure appears. His concern was durability. What lasts when circumstances change, when emotions shift, when incentives realign. The core idea is simple. The goal is not to be feared. The goal is to be taken seriously. Being taken seriously means your words carry weight, your boundaries are respected, and your decisions shape outcomes. Fear is one way seriousness can be established, but it is not the destination. It is a structural tool, not an emotional state. Love, affection, and goodwill feel warmer, but they are fragile. They depend on mood, benefit, and comfort. He observed that people withdraw affection the moment it becomes inconvenient. Authority built solely on being liked dissolves under stress. This is why he makes a distinction that still makes people uncomfortable. Love is conditional. It thrives when things are going well. It weakens when sacrifice is required. Fear, in contrast, is structural. It does not depend on emotional attachment. It depends on predictable consequences. When people know where lines are drawn and what happens if they are crossed, behavior stabilizes. That stability is what Machiavelli is after. Not cruelty, not domination, but reliability. Respect sits above both fear and love. Respect lasts longer than affection because it is rooted in consistency. People may stop liking you, they may disagree with you, they may even resent you. Respect can remain if your actions are clear, your standards are steady, and your boundaries do not fluctuate with emotion. Machiavelli understood that authority collapses when people stop taking consequences seriously. Once rules feel optional, power dissolves into chaos. This is where the nuance becomes critical. Hatred destroys power. Machiavelli warns against it repeatedly. Hatred motivates rebellion, it invites revenge, it turns obedience into resistance. A leader who generates hatred may hold power temporarily, but they are constantly exposed to plots, betrayal, and collapse. Hatred sharpens opposition. It creates enemies willing to take risks just to see you fall. That is not strength. That is instability. Inconsistency is just as destructive. Authority depends on predictability. When rules change based on mood, favoritism, or weakness, trust evaporates. People no longer know where they stand. Some will push boundaries to test limits. Others will disengage entirely. Inconsistent leadership creates anxiety, not safety. Machiavelli understood that people prefer firm rules to uncertain kindness. Even harsh clarity is easier to live under than emotional volatility. Clear boundaries create safety. This is one of Machiavelli's most misunderstood insights. Boundaries protect everyone involved. They reduce conflict by removing ambiguity. When expectations are known, people can adapt. When standards are stable, behavior aligns. Authority that relies on persuasion alone becomes exhausting. Authority grounded in structure sustains itself. When people quote Machiavelli as advocating fear, they miss his real argument. He is not saying fear should replace love. He is saying love cannot replace structure. Love without structure dissolves into favoritism, manipulation, and disappointment. Fear without structure becomes cruelty. Structure without hatred produces respect. This applies far beyond politics. In leadership, the same dynamics appear immediately. A manager who wants to be liked often avoids difficult conversations. Deadlines slip, standards erode, high performers become resentful. Eventually, the team loses direction. A leader who sets clear expectations, enforces them consistently, and communicates consequences does not need to intimidate anyone. The seriousness of the structure does the work. People know what matters and act accordingly. In self-respect, the pattern is just as clear. People who avoid setting boundaries to remain agreeable often end up resentful and invisible. They sacrifice their standards for short-term harmony. Over time, others learn that their limits can be crossed without consequence. Respect fades, not because they are unkind, but because they are unclear. Machiavelli would say that a person who cannot enforce their own standards will always be ruled by the standards of others. In relationships, this lesson becomes uncomfortable but essential. Affection without boundaries creates instability. People test limits unconsciously. They push to see what is tolerated. Clear boundaries communicate self-worth. They create safety by making expectations explicit. This is not about control, it is about mutual respect. Relationships deteriorate when rules are implied instead of stated. People respond to structure even when they claim to desire complete freedom. Personal standards operate under the same logic. Discipline depends on clarity. When rules shift based on mood, progress stalls. People who rely on motivation alone struggle because motivation is emotional. Standards are structural. They do not negotiate with feelings. Machiavelli's insight here is subtle. Authority over others begins with authority over oneself. Inconsistency internally produces inconsistency externally. One of the reasons this section of Machiavelli's philosophy provokes such resistance is that it exposes a common self-deception. Many people believe kindness alone earns respect. They confuse being pleasant with being taken seriously. Machiavelli dismantles this illusion. He shows that respect follows clarity, not warmth. Warmth can coexist with clarity, but it cannot replace it. The phrase, "better to be feared than loved," was never meant to encourage terror. It was meant to prioritize reliability over sentiment. Fear, in this context, means awareness of consequences. It means understanding that actions matter. A system where consequences are predictable produces stability, even if emotions fluctuate. A system where consequences are unclear produces anxiety, no matter how friendly it appears. Machiavelli also understood that authority is always relational. It exists only as long as others acknowledge it. Hatred shortens that acknowledgement. Inconsistency undermines it. Clear boundaries extend it. Authority doesn't require constant enforcement when expectations are internalized. This is why people follow clarity. Clarity reduces cognitive load. It removes guesswork. It tells people how to act. In a world full of uncertainty, clarity feels like relief. Even those who resist it at first often adapt once they understand the structure. Confusion breeds resistance. Clarity breeds compliance, sometimes even gratitude. Machiavelli's realism here does not demand emotional coldness. It demands emotional discipline. Leaders, parents, partners, and individuals who understand this stop oscillating between extremes. They do not swing from indulgence to punishment. They do not negotiate fundamentals. They communicate expectations and enforce them calmly. Over time, this consistency becomes authority. This also explains why permissiveness often backfires. When everything is allowed, nothing feels meaningful. Boundaries give shape to freedom. They define space. Machiavelli saw that people function better within limits than in chaos. Authority that provides structure allows individuals to focus energy instead of constantly testing where lines are drawn. The danger lies in misunderstanding fear as intimidation. Intimidation invites rebellion. Structural fear produces order. The difference is subtle but essential. One relies on emotional shock, the other relies on consistency. Machiavelli's preference is always for the latter. He wants power that lasts, not power that explodes. Respect, in his framework, is the long-term outcome of clear authority. It survives disagreement, it survives emotional shifts, it survives hardship. Affection rarely does. That is why respect is more reliable. It does not require constant reinforcement. It grows from repeated experience of stability. This part of his philosophy also challenges the modern obsession with being liked. Popularity feels validating, but it is unstable. It fluctuates with trends and moods. Authority grounded in clarity does not depend on applause. Machiavelli would argue that leaders who chase approval lose the ability to lead. They become reactive. They surrender structure for validation. When you apply this personally, the lesson becomes uncomfortable but freeing. Stop trying to be liked by everyone. Start being clear about who you are, what you tolerate, and what you refuse. Enforce those standards without anger and without apology. Over time, respect replaces confusion. Some people will leave, Others will adjust. What remains is stability. People don't follow kindness, they follow clarity. Kindness without clarity dissolves. Clarity without hatred endures. Machiavelli's insight here is not cruel, it is stabilizing. It recognizes that humans need structure more than sentiment when things become difficult. Authority, when grounded in consistency and boundaries, creates safety, not fear. This is why his ideas endure. They describe how power actually functions across contexts. Whether in states, organizations, relationships, or within oneself, authority survives through clarity. Fear, in its structural form, supports that clarity. Hatred and inconsistency destroy it. Do you want to feel liked, or do you want to be taken seriously? In moments of calm, the difference seems trivial. In moments of pressure, it determines who holds influence and who loses it. Machiavelli's realism reaches its sharpest edge when he turns to appearances. This is where many people recoil because it challenges a belief that feels deeply moral, that truth should speak for itself. Machiavelli disagrees, not because truth has no value, but because the world rarely has the patience or the access to see it clearly. What people respond to, especially in moments of pressure, is what they can see, feel, and quickly judge. Power flows toward perception long before it flows toward truth. He observed something uncomfortable but consistent across societies. People judge outcomes, not intentions. You may know why you acted. You may understand the moral reasoning behind a decision. Most people will never see that process. They see results. They see whether something worked or failed. They see who appeared in control and who looked overwhelmed. Intentions disappear the moment outcomes arrive. Machiavelli is not saying intentions are worthless, he is saying they are invisible. Image determines credibility because image is what people have access to. Credibility forms in the absence of complete information. When people cannot fully evaluate competence, they rely on signals, tone of voice, posture, confidence, consistency. These signals shape trust faster than explanations ever could. Machiavelli understood that authority emerges before it is justified. People feel it before they understand it. Strength in this framework must be visible to be effective. Hidden competence offers little protection. Quiet capability may feel noble, but it does not influence behavior unless it is recognized. Machiavelli saw leaders lose power not because they lacked ability, but because they failed to project it. In chaotic environments, perception becomes a shortcut. Those who appear strong attract allies and deter challengers. Those who appear uncertain invite testing. This leads to one of his most controversial insights. Moral purity without competence invites domination. People who refuse to engage with appearances often believe their integrity will protect them. Machiavelli watched this belief collapse repeatedly. Ethical restraint does not stop others from exploiting you. Moral consistency does not prevent aggression. When competence is invisible, virtue becomes vulnerability. This is not an argument for deception as a lifestyle. It is an argument for understanding how human judgment works. Most people never see behind the mask. They cannot. They lack the time, information, and incentive. They respond to surfaces because surfaces are what they are given. Machiavelli insists that pretending otherwise does not make the world fairer. It makes you exposed. Reputation plays a central role here. Reputation is a form of stored perception. It is what remains when you are not present to explain yourself. He understood that reputation protects you when reality fails. When a single mistake occurs, reputation can absorb the shock. When reputation is weak, even small errors become catastrophic. People interpret events through the lens of what they already believe about you. This is why being underestimated is dangerous. Underestimation invites challenges. It encourages others to push boundaries. It tempts rivals to test your limits. He saw underestimation lead to constant instability. Leaders forced into reactive positions because others believed they could be ignored. Underestimation erodes authority quietly, then suddenly. Being seen as weak is fatal in a different way. Weakness signals opportunity. It attracts aggression. It invites exploitation. It removes hesitation from those who might otherwise restrain themselves. Machiavelli observed that once weakness becomes a dominant perception, reversing it is extremely difficult. Every action is interpreted through that lens. Even strength is dismissed as desperation. This is why appearances matter, not because they replace reality, but because they frame it. People interpret reality through perception. Authority is felt before it is explained. Confidence precedes results because confidence shapes how results are received. He suggests understanding that confidence is a social signal that opens doors competence alone cannot. How you carry yourself shapes how others treat you because humans constantly assess risk. They are asking, often unconsciously, whether engaging with you will be costly or easy. Posture, speech, decisiveness, and calm under pressure communicate answers to that question faster than credentials. Machiavelli understood that psychological power operates below conscious reasoning. By the time logic enters, the judgment is often already made. Confidence preceding results is not arrogance. It is alignment between internal readiness and external presentation. Those who wait to feel successful before acting confidently often remain invisible. Those who present themselves as capable attract opportunities that make competence visible. Machiavelli saw this pattern repeatedly in political life. Leaders who projected authority were granted authority. Those who hesitated were sidelined. Authority being felt before it is explained explains why speeches often fail to persuade. Words cannot overcome perception easily. If someone appears unsure, explanations sound like excuses. If someone appears grounded, explanations sound like insight. Influence begins before language. The world does not reward honesty. It rewards convincing strength. Honesty without strength leaves you exposed. Strength without honesty risks collapse. Machiavelli focuses on the former because it is the more common failure. He watched capable, sincere individuals lose influence because they refused to engage with perception. They believed reality would speak eventually. By the time it did, someone else had already claimed the stage. This also explains why symbolic actions matter. Ceremonies, titles, visible discipline, and public decisiveness are not empty theatrics. They communicate order, they reassure allies, they discourage challengers. Machiavelli understood symbolism as psychological infrastructure. Remove it, and uncertainty fills the gap. He also understood that appearances must be maintained. Reputation decays if neglected. Credibility erodes without reinforcement. Authority requires visible upkeep. This does not mean constant performance. It means consistency. People watch for patterns. One moment of visible panic can undo years of quiet competence if perception shifts suddenly. In modern life, this philosophy applies everywhere. In careers, people are promoted not only for results, but for how results are framed. In relationships, boundaries are respected when they are expressed clearly and upheld visibly. In personal development, confidence shapes feedback loops. Those who appear committed receive support. Those who appear uncertain receive advice or control. This is why Machiavelli insists on visibility, not for ego, but for survival. Power ignored is power lost. Competence unseen is competence unused. Appearance is not about lying. It is about alignment between internal strength and external signal. There is also restraint in his realism. He warns against overperformance. Excessive display invites envy and suspicion. The goal is not spectacle. The goal is credibility, enough visibility to establish seriousness, enough restraint to avoid hatred. This balance is delicate and must be adjusted to context. Machiavelli's view of appearances does not deny truth. It acknowledges mediation. Truth reaches people through perception. Those who refuse to engage with that process leave interpretation to others. Often those interpretations are hostile or dismissive. How are you perceived when you enter a room? Not who you believe yourself to be, but what signals you send. Are your standards visible? Is your competence legible? Do your actions reinforce your words? Machiavelli would argue that answering these questions honestly is more valuable than repeating affirmations about authenticity. Authenticity without awareness becomes self-sabotage. Awareness without authenticity becomes manipulation. Machiavelli aims for effectiveness. He wants alignment between capacity and presentation. When those match, authority stabilizes naturally. This realism explains why many people feel unseen despite hard work. They assume effort alone will be noticed. Effort must be translated into perception. That translation is not automatic. It requires intention. In chaotic environments, perception accelerates. Judgments are made faster. Errors are amplified. This is when appearances matter most. Calm under pressure communicates strength. Panic communicates weakness. Machiavelli observed that leaders who remained composed during crisis often retained authority even when outcomes were mixed. Those who appeared shaken lost credibility regardless of intentions. This does not require pretending everything is fine. It requires composure. Emotional control becomes a visible signal of readiness. Those who manage themselves manage perception. Those who cannot manage themselves are managed by others. He is teaching how to avoid being misjudged into irrelevance, how to prevent competence from being overshadowed by poor signaling, how to ensure that strength is recognized before it is tested. Power is not only structural or strategic, it is psychological. It moves through perception. Those who ignore this are ruled by those who understand it. Appearances are not the enemy of truth, they are its delivery system. Machiavelli demands that you master that system if you want your actions to matter. By the time Machiavelli reaches the end of his thinking, he has already stripped away most illusions. What remains is not a celebration of power, but a warning about it. Power is heavy. It presses inward as much as it extends outward. Most people say they want power, influence, control, or freedom, but what they usually want is the appearance of these things without the weight that comes with them. Machiavelli understood that the desire for power fades quickly once its costs become visible. The first cost is loneliness. Authority separates. The moment you become someone whose decisions affect others, the nature of relationships changes. Conversations grow cautious. Honesty becomes filtered. People no longer speak freely around you, not because you are cruel, but because your presence carries consequences. Power reduces symmetry. You listen more than you are listened to. You are watched more than you are understood. Loneliness does not always arrive as physical isolation. Often it appears as emotional distance. Those below you seek approval or advantage. Those beside you calculate alignment. Those above you test loyalty. Genuine equality becomes rare. He presents it as an unavoidable outcome of authority. The dangerous person must accept this trade. Many refuse it unconsciously by staying harmless. The loss of approval follows closely. Approval is a form of social comfort. It signals belonging. Power disrupts that comfort. Decisions that matter will inevitably displease someone. The more responsibility you carry, the more disapproval accumulates. Machiavelli saw leaders destroyed psychologically by their need to be liked. They hesitated when clarity was required. They softened boundaries to preserve affection. Over time, they lost both approval and authority. Being misunderstood is another quiet cost. When you act decisively, people assign motives. They rarely ask. They interpret from the outside. Complexity is flattened. Nuance disappears. Machiavelli understood that strong actions attract simplified narratives. You become a symbol rather than a person. Some will see ambition, others will see cruelty. few will see context. The dangerous person learns to live without being fully seen. This misunderstanding intensifies because strength is often mistaken for aggression. Restraint is invisible. The battles you choose not to fight are rarely noticed. The harm you prevent is difficult to measure. People judge what happens, not what was avoided. Machiavelli knew that authority receives credit for success and blame for failure, but rarely recognition for prevention. This imbalance is part of the burden. One of the heaviest costs is having no one to blame. Power removes excuses. When you have agency, explanations sound hollow. Circumstances still exist, but responsibility rests on your shoulders. People often prefer subordination because it allows deflection. Someone else decides. Someone else fails. Power eliminates that psychological refuge. You stand exposed to outcomes. Responsibility without comfort defines Machiavelli's final warning. Authority does not come with reassurance. There is no guarantee that correct decisions will be appreciated. There is no promise of gratitude. Often there is only silence or resentment. The dangerous person must act without applause and endure criticism without collapse. This emotional discipline is rare. Machiavelli never pretends that power brings peace. It brings clarity. It sharpens consequences. It removes ambiguity about where you stand. Strength isolates because it reduces dependency. When you rely less on others for validation or protection, distance grows. That distance is not cruelty, it is independence. Many people avoid power precisely because they fear this separation. Authority exposes, it magnifies flaws. Every inconsistency becomes visible. Every weakness is tested. Power accelerates feedback. There is no hiding behind anonymity. Mistakes are public, doubt is noticed. Composure becomes a requirement rather than a preference. This exposure is exhausting for those unprepared. Freedom removes excuses. This is perhaps the most unsettling insight. Freedom sounds desirable until it demands accountability. When you are free to choose, you are also free to fail. Machiavelli recognized that many people unconsciously sabotage their own authority to preserve excuses. They cling to limitations because limitations provide explanations. Power removes those explanations. This is why most people avoid becoming dangerous. Not consciously but behaviorally. They delay decisions, they seek permission, they soften standards, they prioritize approval over clarity. They do this not because they are weak, but because the cost of strength feels too high. Dangerous people, in his framework, are not cruel. Cruelty is often a symptom of insecurity. It compensates for lack of control. True capability does not require excess force, it requires precision. Those who can enforce boundaries rarely need to threaten. Those who can act decisively rarely need to dominate. Machiavelli saw restraint as the highest expression of power. Capability allows choice, weakness removes it. When you depend on approval, you cannot afford honesty. When you depend on affection, you cannot enforce boundaries. When you depend on stability, you cannot act under uncertainty. Dangerous people build internal strength so that restraint becomes possible. They do not need to prove themselves constantly. They can afford patience. This reframes Machiavelli's reputation entirely. He is not teaching people to become tyrants. He is teaching them to become responsible. Responsibility without illusion. Responsibility without self-deception. He understood that power without self-control becomes destructive, but lack of power disguised as virtue becomes pathetic. The final integration of his philosophy is quiet but profound. Dangerous people are capable. That capability creates options. Options create freedom. Freedom allows restraint. Those without capability are forced into reaction. They moralize their powerlessness. He also understood that strength reveals character rather than corrupts it. Power amplifies what is already present. Those with integrity use power carefully. Those without it abuse power quickly. The corruption people attribute to power often existed long before authority arrived. Machiavelli saw this pattern repeatedly and refused to blame the tool instead of the wielder. This brings us to his unspoken warning. If you pursue strength, you will lose illusions about yourself. You will see your limits clearly. You will confront your fear of isolation. You will discover whether your values survive responsibility. This is why becoming dangerous is transformative. It strips away narratives. Many people prefer moral certainty to self-knowledge. Machiavelli offers the opposite. He offers self-knowledge through exposure, through action, through consequence. He believes that only those willing to carry this weight deserve authority. This philosophy is uncomfortable because it removes comforting stories. There is no guarantee of reward, there is no promise of recognition. There is only the reality of choice and consequence. Machiavelli insists that this reality is unavoidable. You either face it consciously or submit to it unconsciously. The dangerous person chooses consciousness. They accept isolation as the price of clarity. They accept misunderstanding as the price of action. They accept responsibility as the price of freedom. This acceptance hardens without brutalizing. It grounds without numbing. This is why Machiavelli's ideas endure. They do not flatter, they challenge, they demand maturity. They refuse to treat adults as children in need of comforting lies. He assumes you are capable of bearing truth, even when it is heavy. Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. And becoming dangerous means finally seeing yourself clearly. Seeing yourself clearly means seeing where you hide, where you avoid responsibility, where you trade strength for comfort. In the end, the question he leaves you with is simple and unsettling. Do you want safety through weakness or freedom through strength? There is no moral judgment in his answer, only consequence. You were not born ashamed of your ambition. You did not enter this world apologizing for wanting attention, wanting power, wanting to win, wanting to be seen. Watch a child closely, and you will see something raw and unfiltered. A child runs fast because it wants to. A child shouts loudly because it feels like it. A child says, "Look at me," without hesitation. There is no embarrassment in that voice. There is no calculation. There's only energy moving outward. That is the natural state. Energy moves outward. Desire moves outward. Instinct moves outward. Now imagine early human beings long before modern comfort, long before social media, long before polite society. Life was harsh. Survival required strength. If you had power, you used it. If you had courage, you showed it. If you had skill, you demonstrated it openly. Your instincts were not a problem to be corrected. They were tools. Aggression defended your territory. Pride signaled status. Confidence attracted allies. The body and the will worked together without apology. Over time, human beings began forming larger and more structured communities. Order became necessary. Rules appeared. Hierarchy stabilized. Punishment systems developed. Religion emerged with moral codes that shaped behavior. Society needed predictability. It needed control. When communities grow large, unrestrained instinct becomes dangerous. You cannot have thousands of people acting on every impulse, so instincts had to be managed. This is where Nietzsche becomes extremely sharp. In On the Genealogy of Morals, he writes, "All instincts that do not discharge themselves outwardly turn inward. This is what I call the internalization of man." Instinct does not disappear. It does not evaporate. It does not die because society tells it to behave. It remains alive. But when it cannot express itself outwardly, it changes direction. It turns inward. Imagine a river that once flowed freely through open land. Now imagine building walls around it. The water does not stop existing. It builds pressure. It changes course. It digs into the earth. It creates underground currents. Human instinct works the same way. Aggression that once defended territory now becomes self-criticism. Pride that once declared strength now becomes guilt. Ambition that once sought conquest now becomes anxiety. Intensity that once commanded attention becomes embarrassment. Energy has nowhere to go outwardly, so it begins attacking the self. Nietzsche calls this transformation bad conscience. He writes, "Bad conscience is an illness." This is a strong statement. An illness, not a virtue, not a sign of moral superiority. An illness. He saw bad conscience as the psychological cost of civilization. When human beings were forced to restrain their natural drives, those drives turned against the individual. The warrior became self-judging. The powerful animal became self-suspicious. Think about your own life. When you feel a surge of ambition, what happens immediately after? Often there is a quiet voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" When you imagine becoming more successful than your peers, something inside tightens. When you speak confidently about your goals, you might later replay the conversation in your head and feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is not random, it is not mystical, it is internalized instinct colliding with inherited morality. At some point in history, pride became labeled as sin. Religious traditions spoke of humility as a supreme virtue. Obedience was praised, submission was praised, suffering quietly was praised. The strong were warned, the bold were watched, the intense were softened. Gradually, the cultural atmosphere shifted. Strength had to justify itself, ambition had to explain itself, confidence had to apologize for itself. In that atmosphere, shame becomes a powerful tool. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, "I did something wrong." Shame says, "There is something wrong with me." Shame attacks identity. It tells you that your very drive is dangerous. Your hunger for more becomes suspicious. Your desire to dominate your field becomes morally questionable. Your refusal to settle becomes selfish. Over generations, this attitude becomes normal. Children grow up hearing subtle messages: do not show off, do not brag, do not outshine, do not be too much, do not want too much, blend in, be modest, be safe, do not disrupt harmony. You internalize these signals before you even understand them. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche writes, "Morality is the herd instinct in the individual." This sentence is brutal in its clarity. Morality in this sense is not an objective voice from heaven, it is the herd speaking inside you. It is the group's survival instinct planted into your nervous system. The herd values cohesion. It values stability. It fears individuals who move too far ahead because rapid movement threatens balance. When the herd instinct lives inside you, it watches your own ambition with suspicion. You become your own censor. You feel embarrassed for wanting to stand out. You downplay your achievements. You hesitate before speaking boldly. You correct your own posture before anyone else has the chance. This is how shame operates. It becomes automatic. Notice how quickly shame appears in modern life. Someone starts a business and succeeds quickly. The comments appear: "You've changed. Stay humble. Don't forget where you came from." A person posts confidently about their progress. Others interpret it as arrogance. A man becomes physically strong and disciplined. Some accuse him of ego. A woman becomes highly competent and decisive. She is labeled intimidating. These reactions reinforce internal hesitation. Over time, you learn to self-limit before the world has to limit you. Nietzsche believed that this internalization created a deeply divided human being. Part of you still wants to expand, conquer, create, and dominate your craft. Another part whispers caution, warning you about social punishment. The conflict produces anxiety, it produces hesitation, it produces shame. And here is the key: shame feels moral. It feels like wisdom. It feels like maturity. But often it is simply suppressed instinct. You might think your discomfort is humility. You might think your self-doubt is virtue. You might think your hesitation is ethical depth. Sometimes it is simply the herd instinct keeping you manageable. Consider how ambition is framed today. When someone says they want to be extraordinary, people often respond with subtle discomfort. The socially acceptable goal is balance, moderation, and quiet success. Intensity makes people uneasy. Extreme dedication makes people uneasy. Radical self-belief makes people uneasy. Why? Because it exposes contrast. When one person rises sharply, others are forced to evaluate themselves. That evaluation is uncomfortable. Shame becomes contagious, so the group develops subtle mechanisms to neutralize extreme growth. You absorb those mechanisms early in life. Teachers reward compliance, classmates mock overachievement, families encourage stability over risk, society praises security over boldness. Gradually, your nervous system associates expansion with social threat. This is how control works in a weak world. You do not need visible chains, you do not need guards, you do not need physical punishment. The mind polices itself. You feel the tension before stepping outside the line. You correct your own behavior to avoid friction. You silence your own intensity. From the outside, it looks like maturity. From the inside, it feels like caution. But underneath, there is often suppressed fire. Nietzsche saw that fire. He saw how civilization reshaped human instinct and called it virtue. He did not advocate chaos or random cruelty. He observed the psychological cost of suppressing strength. When strength cannot move outward, it decays inward. It becomes guilt, resentment, anxiety, and self-hatred. Think about how many people feel guilty for wanting more money, guilty for wanting influence, guilty for wanting dominance in their field, guilty for wanting to be exceptional. That guilt is rarely examined. It is accepted as normal. But ask yourself, who taught you that wanting more was morally suspicious? The herd instinct operates quietly. It whispers that equality of outcome is fairness. It suggests that standing too far ahead is inconsiderate. It convinces you that shrinking yourself is kindness. Over time, you begin to equate smallness with goodness. This is the psychological turning point Nietzsche diagnosed. The ambitious individual becomes hesitant about ambition. The person capable of greatness negotiates with mediocrity, and it all feels reasonable. That is the brilliance of shame as a control mechanism. It feels like being a good person. It feels like fitting in. You discipline yourself on behalf of the group without being told to. In a weak world, overt force is unnecessary. Physical chains are inefficient. External punishment is costly. Internal shame is far more effective. When the herd lives inside you, it does the policing for free. This is the realization that begins the transformation. You were not born ashamed of your ambition. You were shaped, conditioned, socialized, civilized. Your instincts were redirected. Your fire was softened. Your intensity was reframed. Control in a weak world does not require chains. It requires shame. The herd use shame to keep you small. Once shame has been planted inside the individual, it does not just sit there quietly, it becomes useful, it becomes functional, it becomes a system of protection for the group. Shame is not only a psychological accident, it plays a role in maintaining stability. It keeps the many aligned, it keeps movement slow, it keeps power evenly distributed. The herd survives by minimizing extremes. That is why shame protects the herd. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche writes, "Morality in Europe today is herd animal morality." When he says this, he is describing a type of morality built around collective comfort. Herd morality values safety, it values equality, it values predictability. These values are not evil in themselves. Every society needs a certain level of stability. The problem arises when stability becomes the highest good, when safety becomes sacred, risk becomes suspicious. When equality becomes the highest virtue, excellence becomes threatening. When predictability becomes comforting, intensity becomes dangerous. The herd wants smooth ground. It wants flat landscapes. It does not want mountains rising too high above the horizon. Mountains create contrast. They create shadow. They create hierarchy. A flat field is easier to manage. Herd morality distrusts intensity because intensity disrupts rhythm. It distrusts ambition because ambition moves too fast. It distrusts dominance because dominance creates asymmetry. It distrusts radical independence because independence weakens collective influence. When someone operates from their own inner compass instead of shared approval, the herd loses leverage. This is why shame becomes a social instrument. When you are young and you try too hard in school, classmates might mock you. When you train harder than others, you might be teased. When you speak confidently about your plans, you might notice subtle eye rolls. These reactions are not coordinated in a meeting room somewhere. They emerge naturally from herd psychology. The group senses deviation and reacts to correct it. The correction rarely looks violent. It looks like humor. It looks like sarcasm. It looks like gentle warnings. Don't get ahead of yourself. Stay humble. You're doing too much. These phrases carry weight. They teach you to self-regulate before you threaten equilibrium. Nietzsche contrasts the herd with what he calls the noble type. In On the Genealogy of Morals, he writes, "The noble type of man experiences itself as determining values. It does not need approval." This sentence marks a deep psychological divide. The noble type does not look outward to decide what is good. He does not wait for applause before feeling worthy. He does not scan faces for permission. He defines value internally. His sense of worth flows from his own standards. His goals are self-authored. His discipline is self-imposed. His direction is self-chosen. The herd operates differently. The herd seeks approval. It scans constantly. It reads the room. It adjusts tone, posture, and ambition based on social feedback. The herd experiences morality as something shared. It wants reassurance that it belongs. When a person shifts from approval-seeking to self-determining, tension arises. That tension is not always dramatic. It can be subtle. You start speaking differently. You make decisions without explaining them in advance. You stop asking for validation before acting. You commit to goals without consulting everyone around you. At that moment, discomfort appears. Discomfort spreads because your independence creates contrast. Your willingness to act without collective reassurance exposes how dependent others might be on reassurance. Contrast can feel like judgment even when no judgment is intended. Your growth forces reflection in those who are not growing at the same pace. Reflection is uncomfortable. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche writes, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." This image explains a common social experience. As you elevate your standards, some people begin to interpret your growth as distance. As you become more focused, some people interpret it as coldness. As you become more confident, some interpret it as arrogance. You might simply be building discipline. They experience it as rejection. When you reduce distractions and narrow your circle, someone may call you antisocial. When you protect your time, someone may call you selfish. When you refuse to participate in certain habits, someone may say you think you are better than them. These labels often say more about the observer than about you. Growth triggers resentment because it highlights difference. Resentment is uncomfortable energy. It looks for an outlet. Shame becomes that outlet. Instead of saying, "I feel left behind," it is easier to say, "You've changed." Instead of admitting insecurity, it is easier to accuse someone of ego. This process is rarely conscious. Most people do not wake up planning to suppress others. Herd behavior is instinctive. It evolved to maintain cohesion. When one member moves too far from the center, the group pulls. That pull can feel like concern. It can feel like love. It can feel like advice. Underneath, it often serves the function of stabilization. Consider how quickly society praises moderation. The person who trains 5 days a week is seen as balanced. The person who trains twice a day for years is seen as obsessive. The person who works a stable job is responsible. The person who builds relentlessly is seen as extreme. The person who speaks politely is kind. The person who speaks with intense conviction is seen as aggressive. Intensity disrupts collective comfort. Comfort protects the herd. Shame keeps intensity in check. This is why shame is powerful. It does not need to attack you directly. It only needs to make you doubt yourself. If you begin to shrink voluntarily, the herd's job is done. You regulate your own ambition to avoid friction. You dilute your own voice to avoid tension. You tone down your goals to preserve harmony. From the outside, this looks like maturity. From the inside, it can feel like compromise. There is also a deeper layer. Herd morality tends to elevate equality as a moral ideal. Equality and dignity is essential for human rights, but when equality extends into equality of outcome or equality of aspiration, excellence becomes awkward. If everyone must feel equal at all times, extraordinary achievement creates emotional imbalance. The simplest solution is to morally question the achiever. Labels appear quickly: selfish, arrogant, cold, different. These words sting because they attack character. They imply a moral flaw. They suggest that your growth is not just intense, but wrong. Over time, repeated exposure to such labels can erode confidence. You begin to question your own drive. You begin to soften your ambitions before others have to soften them for you. The herd rarely says, "Please remain average so we feel comfortable." Instead, it wraps its discomfort in moral language. It frames hesitation as kindness. It frames ambition as ego. It frames independence as isolation. When you internalize these messages, your nervous system learns that expansion equals social risk. Your body reacts before your mind can reason. You hesitate during opportunities. You over-explain your success. You downplay your victories. You apologize for being busy. You feel strange about outgrowing old environments. This is how shame protects the herd. It does not eliminate talent. It slows it. It shapes it. It keeps it within acceptable boundaries. The noble type described by Nietzsche stands outside this dynamic. The noble does not constantly monitor the emotional reactions of the group. The noble respects his own path enough to continue even when misunderstood. This does not mean cruelty, it means clarity. It means the courage to accept misinterpretation without collapsing. When you begin rising, discomfort appears because you shift from shared approval to self-determined value. That shift changes relationships. Some will adapt, some will resist, some will attempt to pull you back with subtle pressure. You may notice conversations change. You may feel distance where there used to be closeness. Growth alters dynamics. Many people retreat at this stage. They lower their standards to restore harmony. They abandon difficult goals to regain approval. They shrink their voice to avoid tension. This retreat feels safe. It restores belonging. It reduces conflict, but it also reduces potential. Growth triggers resentment because it exposes possibility. Possibility can feel threatening. If you demonstrate what is achievable, others must confront their own choices. That confrontation can create discomfort. Discomfort looks for relief. Shame provides relief by reframing the achiever as morally flawed. Understanding this dynamic changes how you interpret resistance. When someone calls you selfish for protecting your time, you can pause before accepting the label. When someone calls you arrogant for believing in your vision, you can examine whether the accusation reflects reality or discomfort. When someone calls you different, you can decide whether difference is truly a problem. This does not mean ignoring feedback. Honest criticism is valuable. It sharpens character. It refines skill. The key difference lies in the source and intent. Feedback aimed at improvement feels constructive. Shame aimed at reduction feels diminishing. One strengthens, the other shrinks. If you constantly feel guilty for growing, for aiming higher, for becoming more disciplined, for distancing yourself from habits that no longer serve you, pause and examine the feeling carefully. Ask where it originated. Ask whose comfort it protects. Ask what would happen if you ignored it. The herd seeks approval. The noble creates values. One waits for permission. The other moves from conviction. If you constantly feel guilty for growing, ask who benefits from your hesitation. At some point, awareness is no longer enough. You can understand shame intellectually. You can recognize herd morality. You can see how approval shapes behavior, but none of that changes your life until you act differently. There comes a moment when insight must become decision. That decision is simple and terrifying at the same time. You stop asking permission. Most people never realize how often they seek silent approval. They test their dreams in conversation before committing to them. They soften their language so others will not feel threatened. They adjust their ambition depending on who is listening. They negotiate their own potential in public before fully owning it in private. Permission becomes invisible but constant. It shapes tone, posture, timing, even goals. To become great, that pattern has to end. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes?" This is not poetic decoration. It is a psychological demand. Burning means letting parts of yourself die. Rising means building something stronger from what remains. The ashes are the remains of who you used to be. When you decide to become unapologetic, you begin burning old identities. You burn the version of yourself that needed everyone to agree before moving forward. You burn the version that waited for reassurance before taking risks. You burn the version that diluted its vision to fit the room. These versions feel safe because they were socially rewarded. Letting them go feels dangerous because you lose a familiar way of navigating the world. You also burn old approval systems. Approval systems are internal scoreboards. They tell you whether you are acceptable. They measure reactions, praise, inclusion. Many people build their sense of worth around these systems. If the room is quiet, they shrink. If the feedback is positive, they expand. Their emotional state depends on external signals. Burning that system means deciding that your standard matters more than the reaction of the crowd. That shift creates freedom, and it also creates isolation. Old fears must burn as well. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing friends, fear of being called arrogant, fear of standing alone. These fears feel protective. They warn you about social consequences. When you stop apologizing for your ambition, these fears become louder before they become weaker. Your nervous system senses risk because the pattern is changing. Growth activates resistance. Another line from the same book says, "Man is something that shall be overcome." This sentence challenges comfort. You are not finished. You are not a fixed personality. You are not a completed product. You are a bridge between who you are and who you could become. Remaining static feels safe. Overcoming yourself feels unstable. It requires constant evaluation and constant rebuilding. Self-overcoming demands confrontation. You must confront your laziness, your excuses, your inherited beliefs, your unexamined limits. That confrontation is uncomfortable. It exposes contradictions. It reveals weaknesses. It shows how often you settle for less than your capacity. Overcoming yourself requires honesty that few people sustain. The idea of becoming dangerous is rooted in this process. A dangerous person is not someone who harms others randomly. A dangerous person cannot be easily manipulated. He cannot be silenced by guilt. He cannot be contained by approval. His direction comes from an internal compass that does not depend on constant validation. That independence shifts power. When you stop apologizing for wanting more, you enter a new psychological territory. You no longer explain your ambition in small pieces to make it digestible. You no longer soften your goals to avoid tension. You no longer pretend to be unsure to make others comfortable. You state what you want clearly. You pursue it steadily. You accept that some people will not like the direction. This is where danger begins. Danger does not mean recklessness. It means you cannot be steered through shame. Many systems rely on shame to maintain control. Social groups rely on it. Institutions rely on it. Even personal relationships sometimes rely on it. When shame stops working on you, the leverage changes. What does not kill me makes me stronger. This line is often repeated casually, but its meaning is heavy. Strength grows through resistance. When you face criticism and continue, when you face misunderstanding and continue, when you face rejection and continue. Each experience builds resilience, the nervous system adapts, the emotional intensity decreases over time. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once triggered retreat now triggers resolve. The first time you stand firm in your ambition without softening it, your body may react strongly. You might feel tension in your chest. You might replay conversations later. You might question yourself at night. That is the old approval system reacting to change. If you continue anyway, the reaction weakens. The fire burns through hesitation. Becoming unapologetic does not mean becoming cruel or dismissive. It means you no longer treat your ambition as a moral flaw. You no longer lower your voice when speaking about your goals. You no longer justify your discipline to those who lack it. You move with clarity instead of apology. This shift changes posture, it changes tone, it changes decisions. You choose harder paths without broadcasting your internal doubts. You invest time in long-term growth even when immediate applause is absent. You tolerate silence where you once required praise. Your identity becomes less dependent on reaction. Transformation requires destruction because old structures cannot carry new weight. If you try to grow while maintaining every old approval system, you create internal conflict. Part of you pulls forward while another part pulls back. The tension exhausts you. Burning removes that friction. It simplifies direction. You burn the identity built around being liked by everyone. You burn the identity that avoided confrontation. You burn the identity that stayed average to avoid risk. What remains is raw and focused. It may feel unfamiliar. It may feel exposed. It is closer to your potential. As you move through this process, you realize something important. Many of the limits you once believed were external were internal. You feared judgment before judgment even arrived. You restrained yourself before anyone demanded restraint. You pre-corrected your ambition to prevent criticism that might never have come. The prison existed in anticipation. When you step into danger, you remove that anticipation. You act first. You let reaction come later. You focus on execution instead of emotional forecasting. That change increases speed, it increases power, it increases momentum. There will be friction. Friction is part of growth. When you challenge norms, you create waves. Some people will test you, some will question your motives, some will attempt to reintroduce shame. The difference now is that shame has less grip. You recognize it, you examine it, you decide whether it deserves influence. Over time, your confidence becomes less dramatic and more stable. It is no longer loud, it is steady. You know what you are building, you know why you are building it. You no longer need constant reassurance to continue. That steadiness is threatening to systems built on emotional compliance. Dangerous individuals are difficult to predict because they do not follow crowd patterns. They do not retreat when lightly criticized. They do not change direction to avoid discomfort. They operate from conviction rather than reaction. This kind of person shifts dynamics in any room. When you stop apologizing for wanting more, you redefine your relationship with guilt. Guilt loses its automatic authority. You evaluate it instead of obeying it. You ask whether the feeling reflects wrongdoing or inherited conditioning. You differentiate between harming others and merely surpassing them. That clarity frees energy. Energy once used to manage impressions becomes available for creation. You think more clearly, you act more decisively, you recover more quickly from setbacks, you become harder to discourage. That is strength. Becoming dangerous requires courage because it removes excuses. When you no longer blame society for holding you back, you must face your own effort. When you no longer shrink due to shame, your results depend more directly on your actions. That responsibility feels heavy. It also feels clean. You are not finished. You are a bridge. Each stage of growth reveals another layer to overcome. The process never fully ends. You continue burning outdated identities. You continue refining standards. You continue expanding capacity. The ashes accumulate behind you as proof of evolution. The moment you stop apologizing for wanting more, you step into danger. And danger means you cannot be controlled by guilt. There is a moment in every real transformation when excitement fades and reality sets in. At first, becoming unapologetic feels powerful. You speak clearly, you act decisively, you move without hesitation. But then something else begins to happen. The social landscape shifts, the room feels different, the air changes. You realize strength has a cost. Solitude is the price of strength. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes, "Flee, my friend, into your solitude. I see you dazed by the noise of the great men." Solitude in this sense is not isolation born from rejection. It is distance chosen for clarity. Noise is not only sound. Noise is opinion, comparison, commentary, expectation. Noise is the constant pressure to adjust yourself according to what others think. When you grow, that noise becomes louder. Advice increases, warnings increase, judgments increase. You can either absorb it all and become confused, or you can step back and create space. Growth requires distance from noise because clarity demands silence. When everyone is speaking at once, your inner voice becomes faint. When everyone has an opinion about your direction, you begin second-guessing. Solitude restores alignment. It allows you to hear yourself without interruption. It sharpens your vision. When you stop shrinking, some relationships begin to fade. This does not always happen through dramatic conflict. Sometimes it happens quietly. Conversations become shorter, shared interests weaken, schedules no longer align. The bond that once depended on mutual limitation dissolves when limitation disappears. Some people misunderstand you. They interpret your focus as indifference. They interpret your discipline as rigidity. They interpret your silence as superiority. You may not have changed your core values, but your energy has shifted. You are no longer available for the same patterns. That change creates friction. Some will resent you. Resentment is subtle. It rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind sarcasm, distance, or backhanded compliments. You may notice a change in tone. You may feel tension that did not exist before. This is part of the cost. Your growth forces others to confront their own position. Not everyone welcomes that confrontation. From Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche writes, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The tribe is powerful because it offers safety. It offers belonging. It offers shared identity. Humans are social creatures. We evolved in groups. Separation once meant danger. That ancient wiring still lives inside you. When you distance yourself from group expectations, your nervous system reacts. It interprets solitude as risk. This is why most people choose belonging over greatness. Belonging feels warm. It feels secure. It provides immediate feedback. Greatness often feels cold in the beginning. It requires patience. It requires long stretches without applause. It requires walking paths others do not understand. Belonging asks for conformity. Greatness asks for responsibility. When you become shameless, you lose the comfort of external excuses. Before, you could blame society for your hesitation. You could blame your upbringing for your limits. You could blame the herd for holding you back. Once you decide to move forward regardless of approval, those excuses lose power. Your results become more directly tied to your effort. Responsibility replaces resentment. Resentment feels easier. It allows you to point outward. It allows you to narrate your struggle as unfair. Responsibility turns the focus inward. It demands action. It demands discipline. It demands consistency. This shift can feel heavy because there is no one left to blame. Few accept this weight. It is easier to stay inside familiar circles where expectations are low. It is easier to maintain relationships built on shared comfort. It is easier to move at a pace that does not disrupt anyone. Strength requires another path. Strength demands that you endure misunderstanding without collapsing. There will be evenings when you feel the distance. You may scroll through old photos and notice who is no longer around. You may think about conversations that ended quietly. You may wonder if the cost is worth it. That doubt is natural. It is part of the adjustment. Solitude does not mean abandoning connection. It means choosing connection that aligns with growth. As you evolve, you may attract new relationships built on shared standards instead of shared limitation. These connections feel different. They are less dependent on constant reassurance. They are built around mutual respect. Still, there will be phases where the path feels empty. During those phases, you learn something critical. You learn to be comfortable with yourself. You learn to validate your own direction. You learn to sit with uncertainty without rushing back to noise for comfort. This stage separates those who experiment with growth from those who commit to it. Experimentation feels exciting. Commitment feels steady and sometimes lonely. The tribe offers immediate warmth. The solitary path offers long-term expansion. Becoming shameless also changes how you see your past. You can no longer use it as a shield. Trauma, disadvantage, and hardship are real. They shape behavior. They influence choices. At some point, continuing to build identity around them limits movement. Strength requires integration. You acknowledge the past, learn from it, and move forward without letting it define your ceiling. You cannot blame society. Society will always have limitations. You cannot blame the herd. The herd will always protect itself. You cannot blame your past indefinitely. Responsibility means using your circumstances as raw material rather than permanent barriers. This mindset feels sharp. It leaves little room for self-pity. It removes the comfort of victimhood. It demands daily effort. That demand is why few accept it. When you look at individuals who have built something extraordinary, you will often find long periods of solitude behind the visible success. Long hours of work without recognition. Long stretches of doubt handled privately. Long seasons of moving forward without group validation. Strength grows in these quiet spaces. Solitude also clarifies priorities. When noise decreases, distractions lose power. You see more clearly what matters. You allocate time more intentionally. You stop chasing every opinion. You stop reacting to every comment. Your energy becomes focused. That focus creates depth. Depth produces skill. Skill produces confidence. Confidence reduces the need for approval. The cycle strengthens itself. Still, there will be moments when the tribe calls you back. Invitations to return to old habits. Pressure to slow down. Encouragement to relax standards. These invitations feel tempting because they promise relief. Relief from pressure, relief from expectation, relief from standing out. Accepting them may feel comfortable in the short term. In the long term, you will feel the weight of unrealized potential. That weight is heavier than solitude. Strength reshapes identity. Identity reshapes relationships. Relationships reshape daily life. The transformation is comprehensive. It touches everything. That is why it feels intense. When Nietzsche urges his friend to flee into solitude, he is not glorifying isolation for its own sake. He is recognizing that clarity requires space. The noise of the many can drown the voice of the individual. If you never create distance, you may never hear your own direction clearly. The struggle against being overwhelmed by the tribe continues throughout life. The tribe changes form. It may appear as colleagues, online communities, cultural trends, or even family expectations. The pressure to conform never disappears entirely. Your strength lies in choosing when to engage and when to step back. Few accept the weight of full responsibility because it leaves no hiding place. It exposes laziness. It exposes inconsistency. It exposes fear. Once you remove excuses, you face yourself directly. That confrontation is demanding, yet inside that demand lies freedom. You act because you choose to act. You build because you choose to build. You endure because you choose to endure. Your life becomes a reflection of your decisions rather than a reaction to your environment. Solitude sharpens you. Responsibility strengthens you. Distance clarifies you. Most choose belonging over greatness. Few accept the weight. And that is why strength remains rare. There is a final stage in this journey that feels quieter than the earlier ones. It is less dramatic than burning your old identity. It is less intense than walking away from the tribe. It is deeper. It is steadier. It is internal. This is where shamelessness matures. Shamelessness at the beginning feels like defiance. You push back. You stop apologizing. You feel the tension of resistance. But if you stay there, you are still reacting. You are still defined by what you are pushing against. The final stage moves beyond reaction. Shamelessness is not rebellion, it is self-reverence. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche writes, "The noble soul has reverence for itself." Reverence is a powerful word. It implies respect, care, seriousness. A noble soul treats itself as something worthy. It does not drag itself through humiliation. It does not beg for validation. It does not betray its own standards to avoid discomfort. It holds itself upright. Self-reverence is different from arrogance. Arrogance depends on comparison. It needs someone beneath it to feel elevated. Self-reverence stands alone. It does not require an audience. It does not require applause. It does not require agreement. It is rooted in an internal code. When you reach this stage, you no longer measure yourself by praise. Praise becomes pleasant but unnecessary. You appreciate it when it comes, but your direction does not depend on it. You no longer measure yourself by approval. Approval may come and go. Your commitment remains. You no longer measure yourself by permission. You do not wait for others to declare you ready. Instead, you measure yourself by strength. Did you show up when it was difficult? Did you hold your ground under pressure? Did you move forward when fear tried to slow you down? Strength becomes visible in consistency. You measure yourself by integrity. Did your actions align with your words? Did you remain loyal to your principles even when bending them would have been easier? Integrity is silent and powerful. It builds trust within yourself. You measure yourself by growth. Are you sharper than you were last year? Are your habits stronger? Is your thinking clearer? Growth becomes the standard, not status, not comparison, not noise. This shift changes your relationship with success. Success is no longer a performance for others. It becomes a private conversation between who you were and who you are becoming. You compete with your past self. You refine your craft. You expand your capacity. The crowd fades into the background. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche writes, "Become who you are." This line sounds simple, but it carries weight. It assumes that who you are is not fully expressed yet. It assumes potential hidden under conditioning. It assumes strength waiting beneath hesitation. Becoming who you are is not passive acceptance. It is active construction. It requires discipline, honesty, and courage. When you become who you are, you stop imitating. You stop copying standards that were never yours. You stop chasing goals that were handed to you without reflection. You examine your values carefully. You decide which ones to keep and which ones to discard. You design your life deliberately. This is the moment where shame loses its foundation completely. Shame survives when you depend on external judgment. Once your judgment becomes primary, shame loses authority. You still feel emotion, you still experience doubt, but you evaluate it instead of submitting to it. Creating your own standard does not mean ignoring all tradition. It means testing everything. It means asking whether a belief strengthens you or weakens you. It means asking whether a habit builds capacity or drains it. It means asking whether a relationship encourages growth or demands shrinking. The noble soul creates values rather than inheriting them blindly. This process requires thought. It requires reflection. It requires solitude. You must spend time with yourself long enough to understand what you truly respect. Ask yourself what kind of strength you admire. Physical strength, intellectual strength, emotional steadiness, discipline, creativity, leadership. Whatever qualities you admire most deeply can become part of your internal standard. You begin shaping yourself around those qualities deliberately. You also define boundaries. A noble soul does not allow itself to be used easily. It does not tolerate constant disrespect. It does not sacrifice long-term purpose for short-term comfort. Boundaries are not walls of hostility. They are structures of clarity. They define what you accept and what you reject. When you create your own standard, comparison weakens. Social media loses some of its grip. The success of others no longer destabilizes you. Their path is theirs. Your path is yours. You can admire without envy. You can observe without shrinking. Responsibility continues at this stage, but it feels different. It feels chosen. You wake up knowing that your day reflects your standard. If you fall short, you adjust. If you succeed, you refine. The conversation remains internal and focused. The journey now makes sense as a whole. Shame was installed. You recognized it. You resisted it. You accepted solitude. You created yourself. Each stage built on the last. Without awareness, you would still be operating from inherited guilt. Without resistance, awareness would have remained theoretical. Without solitude, your direction would have blurred under noise. Without creation, resistance would have turned into bitterness. Now you stand on ground that feels solid. In a weak world, shame keeps people obedient. It keeps ambition quiet. It keeps strength cautious. It keeps potential contained. Obedience feels safe because it aligns with the group. Safety feels warm because it reduces conflict. The moment you stop apologizing for your strength, something shifts permanently. You no longer hide your discipline. You no longer downplay your goals. You no longer shrink to maintain comfort. You move with quiet confidence. Greatness begins here. Greatness is not loud. It is steady. It is built day after day according to a standard you respect. It does not collapse under criticism. It does not inflate under praise. It moves forward with focus. There will still be moments of doubt. There will still be periods of fatigue. There will still be challenges that test your resolve. The difference now is internal. You do not question your right to grow. You do not question your right to expand. You do not question your right to build. You become difficult to control because your center is stable. The noble soul stands upright even when alone. It speaks clearly even when misunderstood. It works steadily even when unrecognized. It respects itself enough to continue. This is the path Nietzsche hinted at. Not comfort, not conformity, not endless rebellion, a higher form of self-respect. In a weak world, shame keeps people obedient, but the moment you stop apologizing for your strength, you begin walking the path to greatness. What does it mean to own yourself? Are you truly in control of your thoughts, actions, and destiny? Or are you simply following a script that society, family, and past experiences have written for you? It's easy to live life on autopilot, caught in daily routines and responsibilities without ever questioning why we think and behave the way we do. When we talk about owning yourself, we're talking about the practice of becoming fully aware of who you are at your core. This includes acknowledging your conscious desires, recognizing any hidden motivations lurking beneath the surface, and embracing the parts of yourself that might feel uncomfortable or even frightening. It's about stepping into your life with a sense of confidence and clarity, rather than passively letting the outside world shape every decision you make. This journey towards self-ownership can be complex, but if there is one thinker whose work can guide us through the maze of our inner world, it's Carl Jung. Jung's ideas on the human psyche focus on how our thoughts and emotions emerge from both conscious and unconscious depths. By learning to navigate these realms, we can move closer to true self-ownership, where we make our choices based on a profound understanding of ourselves rather than out of habit or fear. To really grasp this concept of owning yourself, let's define it in simple terms. Think of it as living authentically and embracing every part of your psyche, from the aspects you're proud of to those you might find embarrassing or troubling. Often people try to hide certain traits or impulses because of societal expectations or personal shame. But Jung's philosophy suggests that we can never truly become whole if we're ignoring large chunks of who we are. By bringing our hidden parts into the light, we can start to manage them instead of letting them control us from the shadows. Self-ownership also involves understanding the powerful role the unconscious plays in our everyday choices. Sometimes our conscious mind thinks it's in charge, but underlying fears, desires, and past traumas can influence our behavior without us realizing it. Jung argued that if we don't confront these deeper elements, they'll continue to guide us in ways that feel fated or out of our control. Once we learn how to engage with these hidden facets, however, we gain the freedom to decide how we truly want to act. That's the essence of self-ownership, merging the conscious and unconscious aspects of our being, so we can live in alignment with our truest nature. Over the course of this video, we'll explore how Jung's concepts provide a roadmap for that integration. We'll dig into his major ideas, like the ego, the persona, and the shadow, to see how they shape our personalities and guide our relationships with others. We'll also discuss the more subtle areas of his work, such as the anima, animus archetypes, and the collective unconscious, showing how they offer hints about the universal patterns we all share as human beings. Finally, we'll connect these theories to real-world strategies you can use in your daily life. From journaling prompts to dream analysis, we'll look at ways to dive deeper into your inner world and bring any hidden issues to light. This is why Jung's perspective is so powerful in self-development. He believed real growth isn't just about adding on new skills or habits, it's about knowing and befriending every corner of your mind. My fascination with Jung began when I started reading some of his original works and realized how much they explained the struggles and triumphs of my own life. The more I studied his writings, like Memories, Dreams, Reflections, and his famous explorations into symbols and myths, the more I understood that true self-improvement isn't about perfection. Instead, it's about the courageous act of confronting the parts of ourselves we'd rather hide. By the end of this video, I hope you'll feel inspired to begin or continue your own journey of self-discovery, and that you'll discover just how transformative Jung's insights can be for anyone willing to face the depths of their own mind. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in the small Swiss village of Kessville, situated along the shores of Lake Constance. Growing up, he was deeply curious about the inner lives of people and the nature of existence, a fascination likely influenced by his father, who was a pastor, and his mother, who held a strong interest in mysticism. While Jung showed signs of introversion from an early age, preferring solitary play and quiet contemplation, he also had an active imagination that sparked his interest in folklore and ancient myths. These formative years in Switzerland, surrounded by its serene landscapes and rich cultural heritage, provided Jung with a fertile environment to explore both the outer world and his inner thoughts. After studying medicine at the University of Basel, Jung specialized in psychiatry, a field that allowed him to merge his passion for science with his deep-seated interest in dreams, spirituality, and human consciousness. Early in his career, Jung became intrigued by the work of Sigmund Freud, whose studies on the unconscious mind were pioneering at the time. Their eventual collaboration, often marked by intense discussions and shared excitement about the uncharted territory of human psychology, set the stage for many breakthroughs in understanding the psyche. However, their relationship took a sharp turn when they reached fundamental disagreements over the nature of the unconscious, driving Jung to break away from Freudian psychoanalysis and forge his own path. During his professional journey, Jung introduced several key milestones that changed the landscape of psychology. Chief among them was the development of analytical psychology, a framework that broadened the scope of what was then known about the unconscious. Whereas Freud largely viewed the unconscious through a lens of repressed sexual and aggressive urges, Jung believed it was richer and more expansive. He proposed that the unconscious contained layers beyond personal experiences, connecting individuals through common myths and symbols. Another significant milestone was the publication of the Red Book, a compilation of Jung's private writings and illustrations that documented his intense self-exploration, including vivid dreams and active imagination sessions. This personal record was kept hidden for many years before being released to the public, and it offered an unparalleled look into the depths of Jung's psyche, revealing how he wrestled with visions, symbolic imagery, and profound existential questions. By exposing his own process of introspection, Jung highlighted the value of self-inquiry as a way to truly understand human nature. Jung's influence extends well beyond the walls of academia, in part because his ideas remain surprisingly relevant in modern psychology and self-development circles. Take, for instance, the popular concepts of introversion and extroversion, which Jung first introduced as distinctive ways in which people orient their energy, either inward toward their inner world or outward toward external activities and relationships. This simple distinction laid the groundwork for countless personality tests, including the well-known Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is still widely used today. Similarly, his theory of the collective unconscious, the idea that all humans share a vast reservoir of ancestral memories and symbols, captured the imaginations of artists, writers, and filmmakers who found in Jung's work a language to describe universal patterns in myth and storytelling. Then there is the concept of archetypes, universal figures like the hero, the wise old man, and the mother, which Jung argued appear in various religions, cultures, and fairy tales across the globe. These archetypal patterns help explain why certain symbols or narratives resonate so powerfully with us, no matter where we come from. By giving shape to these universal themes, Jung allowed individuals to see that their personal struggles, dreams, and triumphs are often part of a much larger human story. What sets Jung apart and makes him so relevant even in the age of social media and rapid technological change is his holistic approach to the human mind. He believed that to understand ourselves fully, we must look beyond behavior and conscious thoughts to include the deeper, more mysterious realms of our psyche. Unlike many thinkers who reduce human actions to purely logical or purely instinctive processes, Jung saw the psyche as a blend of conscious desires, unconscious motivations, archetypal forces, cultural influences, and personal history. This inclusive outlook points us toward a more balanced sense of self-awareness, where we learn to recognize that our fears, dreams, and insights might be connected to larger patterns we share with other people. Such an understanding can feel both humbling and empowering. Humbling, because we see we're not as isolated or unique as we might have assumed, and empowering, because we realize we have the freedom to shape our destiny once we understand the forces playing out in our minds. Ultimately, the question, how do we own ourselves in a world that often pushes us toward conformity, becomes more approachable when we apply Jung's lens. If owning yourself means being true to your individuality, you first need to recognize all the influences that shape your perspective, both inside your mind and in the social world around you. By studying Jung's life and work, we see the importance of daring to go beyond the usual explanations for why we feel the way we do. He demonstrated through his break with Freud and through his groundbreaking ideas that it's possible to challenge mainstream viewpoints when they no longer serve your deeper truth. Jung's example encourages each of us to examine our internal processes, our dreams, personal fears, unspoken desires, and to integrate them consciously so we can stand firm in who we are. In a society that often favors quick fixes, shallow appearances, and instant gratification, Jung's emphasis on sustained introspection and inner growth serves as a welcome reminder that real transformation comes from confronting the depths of our minds. Through this confrontation, we learn to own our behavior, our choices, and ultimately, ourselves. When Carl Jung talks about the structure of the psyche, he's describing the different layers and components that make up who we are as individuals. It's not just our everyday thoughts and conscious decisions. There's also a vast realm of influences that exist beneath the surface, which he calls the unconscious. According to Jung, our psyche can be understood through several key elements: the ego, the persona, and the self. These concepts might sound abstract, but they're actually ways of describing how we experience life, how we present ourselves to the world, and what holds all our different pieces together. The ego is the center of our conscious mind, meaning it's responsible for our day-to-day awareness and sense of I. The persona, on the other hand, is more like a social mask, something we wear to fit into different situations, whether it's at work, school, or with friends. Finally, the self is the ultimate unifying element of our psyche, the part that brings together both our conscious awareness and our unconscious material into one whole. When you start to see how these components interact, it becomes easier to understand your motivations, navigate your relationships, and make decisions that feel true to who you really are. First, let's explore the ego, which is often the starting point when discussing Jung's idea of the psyche. The ego represents our conscious mind, the part of ourselves that we usually identify with on an everyday basis. It's what we refer to when we say things like, I think, I feel, or I want. Think of the ego as the manager of your conscious experiences. It processes everything coming in through your senses, organizes your thoughts, and decides how you should respond to the world around you. On the positive side, having a strong ego means having a clear sense of self-direction, knowing what you believe in, and being able to express yourself confidently. However, the ego can also become a barrier to growth if it grows too large or rigid. In these cases, we can fall into what some call ego traps, behaviors driven by pride, defensiveness, or stubbornness that keep us stuck. For instance, if your ego refuses to admit when it's wrong, you might find yourself making excuses instead of recognizing a valuable lesson. Likewise, if your ego is consumed with proving you're always right, you may miss out on genuinely helpful feedback. While the ego is essential for day-to-day functioning, it's just one part of the story. If we only live from ego consciousness, we end up ignoring the deeper layers of who we are, like our hidden dreams, fears, and potentials that remain buried in the unconscious. Next comes the persona, a term that comes from the Latin word for mask, In Jung's model, the persona is the face we show to the world, the roles we play to meet societal expectations, and the behavior we adopt to interact with others. Think about how you might behave in a job interview compared to how you act with close friends on a relaxed weekend. Those differences reflect the changing nature of the persona. We adjust it to fit the demands of different environments. This adaptation can be beneficial because it helps us function smoothly in society. For example, you wouldn't want to tell your boss every personal thought that crosses your mind, nor would you talk to a teacher with the same casual approach you might use with your best friend. However, problems arise when we start confusing our persona with our true selves. If you get too comfortable wearing your mask, you can lose touch with your genuine feelings, desires, and opinions. You might start living life based on what you think others expect from you, rather than what resonates deep within. To truly own yourself, it's crucial to recognize that the persona serves a purpose, facilitating social interactions, but it should never dominate to the extent that we forget who we are without the mask. By becoming aware of how your persona shifts from situation to situation, you'll gain a clearer understanding of your authentic self, which lies beneath these surface-level presentations. While the ego and persona deal primarily with our conscious selves and how we relate to the outer world, the self in Jungian psychology is a far more encompassing concept. Jung described the self as the center of our entire psyche, both conscious and unconscious. It's the part that integrates everything about us, including the traits we're proud of and those we'd rather keep hidden. You can imagine the self as the root system of a tree, with the ego as the trunk and the persona as the leaves. The ego and persona might be easier to see and define, but the self is what grounds you, connecting you not only to the personal unconscious, unique to your life experiences, but also to the collective unconscious, the universal themes and archetypes shared by all humans. Finding alignment with the self is what Jung referred to as individuation, a process of becoming the most authentic, whole version of yourself. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong journey that involves exploring your dreams, acknowledging your fears, and making peace with the aspects of your personality you might have rejected. The goal is not to eradicate your persona or flatten your ego. Rather, it's to balance these parts in a way that's faithful to your inner essence. When you operate from a place that honors yourself, you're better able to engage with others without losing sight of your own values, boundaries, and passions. It's vital to remember that each of these components, ego, persona, and self, also interacts with your unconscious, which is like a hidden reservoir of thoughts, memories, and energies that lie outside your everyday awareness. The unconscious can influence you in ways you might not immediately recognize, shaping your preferences, fears, and even the way you respond to stress. Jung believes that understanding these unconscious processes is key to owning yourself fully because it frees you from being ruled by hidden impulses. Instead of unknowingly acting out fears or desires, you become aware of them and can choose whether or not to let them guide your decisions. This awareness is a cornerstone of personal development according to Jung, and it's one of the reasons his theories remain so helpful in modern self-improvement strategies. So, what does this all mean for someone looking to gain a better sense of who they are and how to navigate life? Essentially, learning to recognize your ego can help you become more mindful of when your pride or defensiveness is getting in the way of personal growth. Being aware of the persona you present to others can help you avoid losing yourself in the roles that society, family, or friends might expect you to play. Most importantly, pursuing an understanding of the self leads you to a kind of psychological wholeness that goes beyond simply adopting new habits or chasing external goals. Instead, you're aiming to reconcile your inner complexities, acknowledging that you're both shaped by your conscious plans and driven by your unconscious motivations. By doing so, you move closer to genuine self-ownership, a state in which you feel at home with yourself and confident in your ability to face life's challenges without always needing to hide behind a mask or yield to a fragile ego. This deeper sense of integration is precisely what makes Jung's insights so invaluable for anyone searching for a more meaningful, authentic way to live. Carl Jung introduced the concept of the shadow to describe the parts of ourselves we tend to hide, reject, or deny, often without even realizing we're doing so. Unlike the persona, which represents the socially acceptable face we show to others, the shadow is made up of qualities that seem too difficult, frightening, or socially unacceptable to openly acknowledge. Many people misunderstand the shadow as some kind of evil presence lurking in our psyches, but Jung never intended it to be viewed as purely negative. Instead, he suggested that these hidden traits could be anything we've decided, consciously or unconsciously, to keep under wraps. They might include jealousy, rage, selfishness, or traits we consider embarrassing, like certain desires or habits. However, the shadow can also hold positive qualities that were stifled early on, like creativity we were told wasn't practical, or confidence we were taught to see as arrogance. By calling these aspects the shadow, Jung wanted to emphasize that they lie just out of our conscious sight, but they still affect us in powerful ways. One question that often arises is, why do these parts of ourselves end up repressed or neglected in the first place? It's largely due to a mixture of fear, societal rules, and moral beliefs. From a young age, we learn that certain behaviors lead to disapproval or punishment, so we hide them to fit in. For example, if a child is repeatedly scolded for showing anger or vulnerability, that child might lock those feelings away in order to avoid further rejection. Similarly, if our culture views sensitivity as a weakness, we might suppress that side of ourselves to appear strong and capable. Over time, we forget we've even made these decisions because the process happens gradually. Unfortunately, ignoring or denying these shadowy traits doesn't mean they disappear. They often manifest in projection, where we see in others the flaws we refuse to see in ourselves. This can lead to irrational fears, strained relationships, and deep-seated discomfort with who we are. If we go on pretending these traits don't exist, unresolved conflicts and tension can build up until they overflow in unhealthy ways, like sudden outbursts or chronic anxiety. Recognizing that we all have a shadow is the first step toward a more complete and honest self-understanding. But how do we actually identify what's in our personal shadow? Jung believed we could find clues through the very things that bother us the most in others. If you find yourself deeply annoyed by someone's arrogance, for instance, it might be that you're wrestling with your own pride, which you've tried to keep under control or deny entirely. Another way to discover shadow material is through dreams, since dreams often present symbols and scenarios that our conscious minds might shy away from. If you keep a dream journal, you can look for patterns or themes that make you uncomfortable, noting recurring images or characters that might be hinting at repressed thoughts or feelings. Even simple self-reflection, where you ask yourself direct questions like, what qualities do I admire in others but feel afraid to express, or what do I judge harshly in myself or others, can shine light on traits that you've pushed into the dark. Because this kind of exploration can feel daunting, many people find it helpful to work with a therapist, especially one knowledgeable about Jungian ideas, who can guide them through the process with empathy and expertise. What people often call shadow work is the practice of consciously engaging with these hidden aspects of ourselves. This can include journaling, where you write freely about situations that trigger intense emotions and then reflect on what those emotions might be telling you. Meditation can also be a powerful tool. By sitting quietly and observing your own thoughts without judgment, you create space for repressed feelings to surface. Some individuals find group settings or close friendships beneficial for this work, as open and supportive conversations can bring insight into qualities we might be overlooking. Others choose to do it in private, at least initially, experimenting with methods like active imagination, which Jung advocated for deeper dialogue with inner figures or symbolic images. No matter the approach, shadow work requires courage. It involves facing shame, guilt, or fear, emotions we usually try to avoid. But it's worth noting that the purpose isn't to judge yourself more harshly, it's to bring compassion and understanding to these neglected parts of your psyche. By acknowledging them, you reduce their power to sabotage you from the inside out. Of course, the real reason for doing shadow work isn't just to examine old wounds, it's to own yourself more completely. Once you recognize and integrate your hidden traits, you can harness their energy in positive ways. For instance, let's say you discover a previously repressed anger that has been showing up as passive-aggressive behavior or random irritability. By working through the shadow, you might find a more direct and healthy way to assert your needs, perhaps learning to communicate boundaries more clearly or channeling intense emotion into art or physical activity. Instead of stumbling through life with pent-up frustrations, you develop an honest relationship with your anger, allowing it to inform you when something is genuinely unfair or threatening. Similarly, if you've been denying your own vulnerability for years, you might find that embracing it can lead to deeper connections with others and a richer emotional life. In both cases, acknowledging these dark traits lessens their destructive potential and opens a path to authenticity. To see how transformative this can be, imagine a personal anecdote. Let's say there's a person who grew up believing that being needy was unacceptable. In childhood, they may have learned to hide any sign of needing help or reassurance from parents, friends, or teachers. As an adult, this individual might pride themselves on self-reliance, refusing to ask for assistance even when it's clearly needed. Inevitably, the bottled-up sense of isolation and struggle may lead to resentment or burnout. Through shadow work, they realize that their so-called neediness is actually just a natural human desire for support and connection. Once they integrate this part of themselves, recognizing there's nothing wrong with occasionally depending on others, they experience genuine relief. They stop seeing themselves as a burden and allow people in their life to offer help, leading to healthier relationships and a more balanced lifestyle. This integration doesn't destroy their independence, it simply balances it with vulnerability and trust. Ultimately, embracing your shadow is one of the most important steps toward true self-ownership, because it involves claiming everything about who you are, rather than just the parts you find socially acceptable or personally comfortable. It gives you the freedom to break out of conditioned patterns that may have followed you for years. When you no longer have to constantly push down or mask certain emotions, you open up space for deeper creativity, empathy, and resilience. Rather than being at the mercy of hidden impulses, you become a more integrated and adaptable person. Moreover, you gain a new perspective on the challenges you face in daily life, recognizing that sometimes what you see as a purely external problem may actually reflect a conflict within. By understanding and working with your shadow, you transform unconscious tendencies into conscious choices, which is exactly what self-ownership is all about. You're no longer living in reaction to the parts of yourself you haven't examined. Instead, you're able to meet life's ups and downs with a grounded sense of who you are, including the darker corners of your psyche you once feared to explore. When Carl Jung uses the word individuation, he's referring to a lifelong process in which we gradually integrate all the different pieces of who we are: our conscious attitudes, our hidden emotions, our past traumas, our dreams, and even our cultural or ancestral influences into a unified self. In many ways, individuation can be seen as a process of becoming whole. Most of us walk around carrying split identities. There's the version of ourselves we know consciously, as well as a host of overlooked or undeveloped parts that live out of sight. The goal of individuation is to bring as many of these pieces as possible into alignment. It's not about achieving a perfect state of harmony, because life is rarely that tidy, but about constantly striving toward greater self-awareness and authenticity. By taking the time to reflect on why we think, feel, and behave the way we do, we begin to see that our personality isn't fixed or one-dimensional. Rather, it's an ever-evolving blend of traits, desires, and experiences that shape who we are in each moment. Jung believed that the more integrated our psyche becomes, the more stable and capable we are at handling the ups and downs of life. We become less prone to knee-jerk reactions triggered by unknown fears, and more open to the gentle nudges of our unconscious mind, which can guide us toward growth and creativity if we learn to listen. In Jung's view, this path to wholeness unfolds through several stages. First, we have to recognize the roles we play in everyday life, what Jung called the persona. This involves asking ourselves how we show up in different social settings and whether these public masks have overshadowed our true feelings or made us lose sight of our genuine needs and desires. Next, we must confront the shadow, or those aspects of ourselves we've suppressed for one reason or another. This is often a challenging step because no one likes to face the parts of their personality they find embarrassing or even shameful. However, coming to terms with these traits can be deeply freeing, as it relieves us from the constant effort of pretending they don't exist. Once we've started integrating the persona and the shadow, we move on to understanding and balancing our inner feminine or masculine qualities, what Jung called the anima in men and animus in women. The idea here is not that we each have rigidly defined male or female traits, but that all humans have a mixture of both energies within them. By accepting this blend, we enrich our emotional and creative lives. Finally, after navigating these layers, we edge closer to the self, which is the guiding center of our entire psyche. Reaching this stage isn't something that just happens one day. Rather, it's a continual process of refinement, an ongoing dance between what we know about ourselves and what we still have yet to discover. Why does individuation matter? The short answer is that we can't own ourselves fully if we ignore significant parts of our nature. Imagine trying to drive a car while denying the existence of certain warning lights. Sooner or later, those neglected signals will cause a breakdown. In psychological terms, if we keep pushing aside uncomfortable emotions, personal conflicts, or questions about our identity, they tend to resurface in unhealthy ways, like sudden anger, persistent anxiety, or a deep sense of dissatisfaction with life. Individuation helps us address these warning signs before they become crises. It offers a structured way of recognizing that every aspect of our inner world, even the messy or painful parts, serves a purpose. By learning to listen to what's happening within us, we develop emotional resilience and a stronger sense of self. Jung often compared this process to the hero's journey, a narrative pattern in myths and stories where the main character sets out on a quest, faces trials, finds hidden strengths, and returns home transformed. Similarly, individuation calls us to venture into the depths of our own psyche, armed with curiosity, courage, and humility, in order to unearth deeper truths. While it may feel daunting or even frightening at times, the ultimate reward is a richer, more meaningful life. We learn to guide ourselves with an internal compass that points toward our most genuine inclinations, rather than letting outside pressures dictate who we should be. But this journey is rarely smooth, partly because there are many common roadblocks that get in the way. One of the biggest is social or familial pressure. Our friends, relatives, or culture might expect us to behave in certain ways, pursue certain careers, or adopt certain beliefs. If we blindly follow these expectations, we risk suppressing our own voice, delaying the individuation process. Over time, this can create inner turmoil because our outer life no longer matches our true inner experience. Another major obstacle is the lack of self-reflection. In a busy, fast-paced world filled with distractions, cell phones, social media, and endless entertainment options, it's easy to skim over the surface of life without ever pausing to ask deeper questions about who we are. Spending time alone, journaling, or practicing any form of mindfulness can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if we've spent years ignoring the more shadowy parts of our psyche. Nevertheless, developing a habit of introspection is essential if we want to peel back the layers that hold valuable insights. Finally, fear of change can keep us stuck. Even when we sense that our current way of living isn't fully aligned with our deeper values, the idea of uprooting our habits and shifting our sense of identity can seem terrifying. We might cling to old routines because they feel safe, even if they no longer help us grow. Jung's work reminds us that change is often a necessary ingredient in the quest for wholeness, and that initial discomfort can lead to long-term rewards if we dare to move through it. Despite these challenges, the journey of individuation can be deeply rewarding. As we integrate our conscious intentions with our unconscious impulses, we discover a more coherent sense of who we are and what we stand for. We might realize, for example, that a childhood interest we abandoned due to parental disapproval still brings us joy and should be rekindled. Or we might discover that a so-called negative trait like sensitivity is actually a powerful gift when channeled correctly. On this path, breakthroughs often arrive in unexpected ways, perhaps through a dream that illuminates a hidden conflict or a sudden emotional reaction that reveals a long-standing desire. We learn to see these moments as valuable clues rather than random occurrences. Each clue helps us piece together a fuller picture of our psyche, leading us closer to the kind of self-ownership that's rooted in awareness and acceptance, rather than denial or pretense. Ultimately, individuation isn't about becoming perfect or reaching a final destination. It's a dynamic state of continually weaving together different threads of our inner life. We recognize that we contain multiple facets, some bright and some dark, but we also learn not to judge ourselves too harshly for being incomplete. Instead, we embrace the idea that every experience, whether painful or joyous, can teach us something about who we are. By following Jung's roadmap of encountering the persona, confronting the shadow, and balancing the anima animus, we gain a deeper insight into ourselves and our relationships with others. And by persistently nudging ourselves toward the self, we move beyond superficial definitions of success or happiness into a more profound sense of harmony with our own nature. This doesn't mean life becomes easy overnight, but it does mean we approach each challenge with a level of inner resourcefulness that only comes from honest self-examination. In this way, individuation becomes the ultimate act of self-care, a gradual yet powerful process of becoming who we were always meant to be. One of Carl Jung's most fascinating contributions to psychology is his concept of the collective unconscious, which he believed existed beyond the realm of personal experiences. While your personal unconscious holds thoughts, memories, and impulses tied directly to your individual life, the collective unconscious contains patterns and images, what Jung called archetypes, that are shared by all people. Think of it like a universal blueprint for human experience. These archetypal forms are inherited in much the same way that certain instincts are passed down through generations of animals. Even though our cultures, languages, and personal histories differ, there are fundamental themes and characters that show up in myths, stories, and dreams around the world. Examples include the mother, a nurturing figure who offers comfort and sustenance. The hero, who embarks on a journey to conquer challenges and bring change. The wise old man, who provides insight or guidance. And the trickster, a mischievous character who disrupts order to spark growth or reveal hidden truths. We might think of these as universal storylines that appear in countless fairy tales, religious texts, and works of literature, evidence that human beings are connected by more than just shared biology. According to Jung, these archetypes aren't just interesting coincidences. They act like hidden scripts in our own unconscious minds, influencing our goals, relationships, fears, and aspirations in ways we seldom recognize consciously. This idea of a collective unconscious can profoundly shape our sense of personal identity, because it suggests that every individual's life story is woven into broader human themes. For example, if you've ever found yourself unexpectedly identifying with a mythical hero, or you feel drawn to certain kinds of symbolic art, you might be tapping into these universal patterns. Societal myths and stories don't just entertain us, they mirror our deeper experiences and guide us in navigating life's challenges. Consider modern superhero movies. They often retell classic archetypal narratives of good versus evil, sacrifice, and redemption. These stories resonate with so many people because they echo the universal blueprint we all carry inside, reminding us of the hero's quest to overcome adversity. When we recognize these archetypes in our dreams, relationships, or creative pursuits, we start to see that certain repeated symbols aren't just random. Perhaps you often dream of climbing a steep mountain, which could represent the hero's struggle to accomplish a daunting task. Or you might notice you're drawn to friends who play the wise old man or the mother role in your life. These insights tell us more than just superficial facts about ourselves. They hint at deeper psychological processes and needs, like the need to grow, to be guided, or to be nurtured, that connect us to everyone else who's ever walked the earth. So how does this tie back to the concept of owning yourself and directing your life intentionally? If we remain unaware of the archetypal forces driving our thoughts and actions, we may blindly follow narratives that don't truly serve us. For instance, someone might always feel compelled to play the hero in their personal relationships, rushing in to save others without noticing how it harms their own well-being or denies other people the chance to solve their own problems. Or consider someone who constantly falls under the sway of the trickster archetype, drawn to chaotic or disruptive behavior that can negatively affect their friendships or career. Becoming conscious of these patterns means recognizing when we're being pulled into a particular storyline and consciously deciding how to respond. Awareness doesn't mean we stop relating to archetypes altogether. These are universal energies that often bring richness and meaning to our lives. Instead, it means we gain the freedom to shape our behavior and attitudes more deliberately. By observing these patterns in ourselves, we can decide whether we want to embrace them, modify them, or step away from them entirely. This is vital to self-ownership because it shifts our choices from unconscious habit to conscious deliberation. Practical strategies for exploring the collective unconscious and archetypes can be as varied as the archetypes themselves. One approach is to study myths and legends from different cultures. You could compare the roles heroes play in Greek mythology, for example, to those in modern comic books, noting how certain themes repeat. This kind of comparative reading helps you become more sensitive to archetypal patterns, both in fiction and in your own life. Another useful method is to engage with symbolic art, whether it's medieval paintings, abstract works, or images from tarot decks. These forms of expression often tap into archetypal symbolism, giving you a visual means of connecting with universal concepts like transformation, rebirth, or guidance. As you reflect on these images, ask yourself which of them stir your emotions the most. What might that say about the archetypes that resonate with you on a subconscious level? Jung also proposed an exercise called active imagination, which invites you to directly engage with the figures or images that appear in your dreams or your daydreams. Suppose you keep having a dream about an old mysterious mentor showing you a path through a forest. Rather than dismissing it as random, you could spend time visualizing this character in a relaxed, almost meditative state and begin a mental dialogue. Ask questions. What are you trying to show me? Or, how can I handle the challenges I face? While this might sound odd at first, it's a way of respectfully listening to the messages your unconscious is trying to deliver. In doing so, you might unlock insights about your personal challenges or desires that you've been overlooking. Over time, you'll learn to recognize particular archetypal figures, like a nurturing mother figure or a rebellious trickster, and see how they may be guiding you, cautioning you, or revealing hidden desires. In all these ways, the collective unconscious reminds us that our personal story is connected to a vast web of shared human experiences. You might have a dream symbolizing the hero's quest at the same time someone else on the other side of the world is painting a picture that draws on the same archetype, even if you don't know each other. This interconnectedness can be both humbling and empowering. It's humbling because we realize we're not as isolated or unique as we might have thought. On some level, everyone is traveling through similar psychological landscapes. At the same time, it's empowering because understanding these universal patterns allows us to draw wisdom from the collective pool. When you acknowledge that your anxieties, yearnings, and hopes reflect timeless human themes, you can also tap into the timeless courage, resilience, and innovation humans have shown throughout history. Ultimately, working with the collective unconscious and archetypes is another step in the journey towards self-ownership, because it helps us see ourselves in a broader context, freeing us from the illusion that we're alone in our struggles or that our dreams are meaningless. Instead, every fear, every joy, every obstacle can be reframed as part of a grand archetypal narrative that has played out in countless forms across continents and centuries. We might even find inspiration from these recurring stories, using their wisdom to navigate our own challenges with clarity and confidence. For instance, knowing you're living out a hero's journey can give you courage in tough times, while understanding the mother archetype might help you nurture those around you or yourself more compassionately. The point is not to limit yourself to just one role, but rather to recognize that you contain fragments of many archetypes. When you see these larger forces at work, you gain the power to decide how and when to engage with them. This ultimately enriches your sense of self, enabling you to stand more firmly on your own 2 feet, grounded in both your personal experiences and the universal tapestry of the human psyche. Once you have a basic understanding of Jung's major concepts, like the persona, the shadow, the anima, animus, and the collective unconscious, the next question becomes, how do I actually use these ideas to take more ownership of my life? While Jung's theories can feel abstract or academic at times, there are very practical steps you can take to connect with your unconscious mind and begin the process of integrating the parts of yourself you've overlooked or denied. These steps don't require years of study or a special background in psychology. All you need is a willingness to look inward and a bit of courage to face what you find there. By incorporating simple yet powerful practices like journaling, active imagination, creative expression, and mindfulness, you can bring tangible results into your everyday life, helping you to grow more self-aware, authentic, and confident. One of the most accessible ways to start is through self-reflection and journal prompts. Keeping a journal might sound ordinary, but it can become a powerful tool for exploring your internal world. Jungian psychology emphasizes the importance of noticing what lies beneath the surface, and writing things down is an excellent way to discover patterns you might miss otherwise. A good place to begin is with open-ended questions that challenge you to identify the traits you're unconsciously hiding or projecting. For instance, you can ask yourself, what qualities do I admire yet deny in myself? This question targets the things you admire in other people but feel reluctant to claim as part of your own identity, like leadership, creativity, or boldness. Another revealing prompt is, what traits annoy me in others that might reflect my own shadow? Perhaps you find it annoying when someone is too loud or selfish, only to realize through honest self-examination that you sometimes crave attention or harbor selfish impulses. By writing out these questions and your responses, you create a tangible record of your thoughts, making it easier to spot recurring themes or emotional triggers. Over time, you may realize that you keep circling back to similar patterns, like a constant need for approval or a fear of confrontation, that indicate hidden parts of your psyche crying out for recognition. Beyond journaling, an exercise closely linked to Jung's work is active imagination, which offers a more direct way of speaking to your unconscious mind. Unlike traditional meditation, where the goal is to quiet your thoughts, active imagination encourages an inner dialogue with whatever figures, symbols, or characters emerge from your psyche. Let's say you have a recurring dream figure or a strong emotional reaction to a certain archetype, such as a wise mentor or a cunning trickster. During a quiet moment, you might close your eyes and imagine meeting this figure in a place that feels safe and comfortable to you. Then allow yourself to have a conversation. Ask questions, listen for responses, and observe how the figure reacts. It might feel strange at first, but this method can be incredibly enlightening because it bypasses your conscious defenses. Many people find that by engaging with their unconscious in this way, they uncover insights about fears, desires, or memories they hadn't recognized consciously. Over time, this dialogue can lead to deeper healing, as you address long-ignored emotional wounds and begin to integrate them into a more coherent sense of self. Sometimes individual work is just the beginning, and you may feel you'd benefit from the perspective of others who share your interest in Jungian ideas or depth psychology in general. That's where therapy and group work come in. A Jungian analyst, or any therapist familiar with Jung's concepts, can serve as a guide through your unconscious territory. Through regular sessions, you and your therapist might explore your dreams, analyze projections, or discuss how archetypal themes are playing out in your life. Group discussions and retreats can also provide valuable insights, especially when people share their experiences with similar archetypes or unconscious patterns. Hearing someone else describe the same struggle you're going through can be incredibly validating, reminding you that these hidden challenges are more common than you might think. Furthermore, group settings often spark revelations you might not arrive at on your own, as you witness different approaches to handling similar inner obstacles. Whether you choose a support group, a weekend workshop, or an intensive retreat, being part of a community that recognizes the importance of inner work can help you feel less alone in your quest to own yourself more fully. Another highly effective route to accessing hidden parts of your psyche is artistic expression. Jung himself was a strong advocate for the power of creativity to bring unconscious content to light. Whether you're painting, sculpting, writing poetry, or even dancing, you engage a more intuitive, less analytical part of your mind. You don't need to be a trained artist to benefit from this kind of expression. In fact, putting aside the desire for a perfect final product can be liberating because it allows you to focus on the process rather than the outcome. Symbolic doodles, color choices that feel instinctive, or spontaneous images can all serve as gateways to hidden emotions or memories. The key is not to overanalyze your creations right away. Instead, try simply allowing them to exist on the page or the canvas. Later, you can revisit your work and reflect on any shapes, themes, or colors that pop out. Often, something as simple as doodling can reveal you're harboring more stress than you realized, or that you crave a certain type of emotional release. By letting your creativity flow freely, you grant your unconscious a platform to express itself in ways that words alone might not capture. Of course, all this inner exploration can feel overwhelming if you don't have a way to ground yourself in the here and now. That's why daily mindfulness and meditation practices are so valuable. These don't need to be complicated or time-consuming. You might start with 5 minutes of intentional breathing in the morning, focusing on each inhale and exhale, or you could do a quick body scan at night, noticing areas of tension. The goal is to become aware of how your mind and body are responding to stress, joy, anxiety, or other emotions in real time. This awareness can help you catch moments when your shadow is about to surface, maybe in the form of a snappy remark or a sudden flood of anxiety, so you can respond more calmly. If you've been doing shadow work, for instance, mindfulness can alert you to emotional cues that indicate an old wound is being triggered. Rather than lashing out or shutting down, you can pause, take a breath, and choose a response aligned with the more integrated self you're striving to become. Finally, the true test of these union tools lies in their life application. How do you use the insights gained from journaling, active imagination, or creative expression when you're interacting with your boss, partner, or friends? Perhaps you've discovered a repressed fear that causes you to sabotage opportunities at work. Armed with this new understanding, you might speak up at a meeting instead of holding back, or volunteer for a project that pushes you outside your comfort zone. Or maybe you've realized your relationship issues stem from projecting certain traits onto your partner, the same ones you've been denying in yourself. By owning this projection, you can start having honest conversations that break the cycle of blame and resentment. Even small shifts, like noticing when your anxiety spikes around specific people, or recognizing the moment you start to doubt your worth, can accumulate into significant changes over time. Each choice you make that's rooted in self-awareness strengthens your commitment to living authentically rather than reacting out of habit or fear. In essence, these practical steps, journaling, active imagination, therapy, artistic expression, mindfulness, and direct application, form a holistic approach to self-ownership grounded in Jung's wisdom. They help you peel back the layers of your psyche so you can see clearly what's driving your actions and decisions. Over time, this process fosters a sense of unity between your conscious desires and the unconscious elements that shape your life behind the scenes. And while it can be challenging at times, especially when you come face to face with aspects of yourself you'd rather ignore, each step forward brings you closer to the freedom and authenticity that define true self-ownership. The goal isn't to achieve some perfect, conflict-free existence. It's to live more honestly, to make choices that reflect who you really are at your core. That might involve embracing your creativity, finding the courage to speak your truth, or simply discovering that the traits you once deemed flaws can become profound sources of strength and depth. By walking this path, you move beyond superficial self-improvement and into a genuine conversation with your entire psyche, an ongoing dialogue that, over time, transforms your relationship with yourself and the world around you. As we bring this journey to a close, let's briefly look back at the concepts we've covered and how they all connect to the theme of owning yourself. We began by discussing the persona, the face we present to the world in social situations. By becoming aware of how much we adapt to fit external expectations, we can begin to see where our true self might be getting overshadowed. Next, we explored the shadow, the parts of our personality that we hide or deny, often because they don't align with what we believe is acceptable. Recognizing these hidden traits can be a powerful step towards self-acceptance and authenticity. From there, we moved on to the anima and animus, reminding us that each of us carries both masculine and feminine energies that can enrich our emotional, creative, and psychological life when balanced. Then came the collective unconscious, where universal symbols and archetypes like the hero and the mother reside. These patterns connect us to something greater than our individual stories, influencing our choices and guiding the dreams we experience at night. Finally, we looked at the transformative process of individuation, in which we strive to integrate all these aspects of our psyche, conscious and unconscious, light and dark, into a more unified self. Along the way, we touched on the importance of dream work, which can serve as a direct line to our inner world, offering clues about what remains unaddressed in our conscious life. None of these concepts will automatically transform your life without consistent practice and introspection. As you begin noticing your persona in daily interactions or journaling about your shadow triggers, you'll start to see patterns you might not have caught before. It's through these little aha moments, like recognizing a repeated theme in your dreams or realizing you've been projecting certain traits onto someone else, that real growth takes root. The path to self-ownership isn't a quick fix. It's a winding road that requires patience, courage, and willingness to face discomfort. Yet every step you take can be deeply rewarding because it brings you closer to a state of wholeness, where you're living from a place of genuine self-knowledge rather than societal scripts or hidden fears. It's also important to acknowledge that this work can feel overwhelming at times, especially if you're confronting old traumas, painful emotions, or core beliefs you never thought to question. If you find yourself in a place where it feels like too much to handle on your own, don't hesitate to seek professional help. A Jungian analyst, a depth psychologist, or even a well-trained therapist who's open to exploring unconscious content can be an invaluable ally. Group workshops or retreats focusing on archetypal exploration can also provide a supportive community where you learn from others walking a similar path. Remember that needing help doesn't mean you're weak. It signifies that you're serious about your growth and willing to invest in the processes that lead to real transformation. If you're feeling motivated to delve deeper, there are several immediate ways to continue this exploration. You might start by keeping a dream journal so you can map out recurring symbols or emotional themes. You could also begin or resume therapy, whether one-on-one or in a group setting, especially if you suspect certain shadow aspects are causing ongoing conflict in your relationships or work life. Another powerful step is to read one of Jung's primary texts, such as Memories, Dreams, Reflections, or Modern Man in Search of a Soul, to gain deeper insight into his theories and see how they might resonate with your experiences. If reading Jung directly feels daunting, there are plenty of introductions, commentaries, and guided journals designed to make his ideas more accessible. I want to leave you with one of Jung's most famous quotes: "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This line encapsulates the spirit of everything we've discussed. While it's natural to seek validation, answers, or inspiration from the external world, genuine self-ownership begins when we turn inward and acknowledge the complexity of our own minds. In doing so, we awaken to the parts of ourselves we may have been ignoring, gaining clarity, resilience, and a sense of purpose that doesn't rely on external approval. This process is a lifelong, liberating pursuit because true wholeness can't be rushed. It unfolds as we continually engage with our dreams, our self-reflection, and our relationships in more mindful, empathetic ways. By recognizing the persona we wear, the shadow we hide, the archetypes that shape us, and the deep wells of creativity that reside in our unconscious, we begin to write our own story rather than passively following someone else's script. May this exploration inspire you to look deeper, question more boldly, and discover the transformative power of truly owning yourself.